Hello, we're live. We're live now. I don't know how long that will last. But, well, we're going to make an attempt at this. I normally don't stream to YouTube on Wednesday afternoons, but things have gone in a certain direction that have not been so great. We're going to have a lot of things are going to happen. Let me take the emote only off on Twitch. We're going to talk about everything that has happened. We're going to talk about what needs to happen. And we're going to hopefully have some fun doing it. Hopefully. I'm going to try my best. So let's start with just getting the word out that I am indeed live. Hopefully we have some fun with this situation. It's not fun at all. Oh, I need to get the YouTube chat up or I won't be able to see it now, will I? Hold on one moment here. I can't see the YouTube chat. I'm gonna get that up. There we are. Okay, it should be coming up. Where's the chat? Hey, Walter. Restoring the Realm of Rune. You know, I could tell it's you, Walter, because you have the moderator icon. Restoring the Realm of Rune. Welcome to the stream. Walter and everybody else who might be. Hey, Coyote, how's it going there? Yeah, I'm going to explain everything to do with the computer problems and the issues that I've had and what needs to happen. Okay, if the stream ends abruptly, if it just suddenly stops, that would mean that my computer has crashed. And I will, at that point, try my best to get it going again. You know, so if it just stops abruptly, you'll know what's going on. Let's Rocktober. You brought your Glocktober. Hey, Jesse. But yeah, we're also going to do some catch-up stuff. We're going to catch up on we're going to do the quiz results live. This is somehow Jean Ray's fault. This is true, Alice. This is true. We're going to do the quiz results live. I'm going to catch up on some questions that have been sitting in the community tab. I might do some readings for you guys. We'll try to have some fun and make the best out of what is not a very good situation. But before we start, let me just get the announcement out to the social media that we're live here. URL. There we are. Okay. The wildest thing is I actually left the computer on overnight because I got it running after last night's disaster, and I decided, well, let's see if it stays on all night. And as I'm walking to the PC to keep in mind it's on, it just the monitors weren't on, but it was on. As I'm walking to the PC to sit down and do the stream, I hear like a Windows, just a typical sound that it makes, which always happens when I approach the PC and I don't have system sounds off, because what's happening is my phone is connecting to it and it's giving me phone alerts. So I'm like, well, that's a good sign. That means it's not crashed or anything. And then I immediately see, like as soon as I touch the mouse, it froze up on me. And I had to turn it off. And I thankfully, it came right back up this time. That last night, I couldn't get into Windows or anything. But we're going to tell the whole story from the very beginning about what's been going on. And the reason, I know I told it on Discord, and I know I told it on Twitch. But the YouTube audience has largely not heard of this, other than the little bit that I've posted or alluded to in the community tab. And just a little bit talking about it at the beginning of the most recent episode. Hey, Shiny Mudkip. Hello! The most recent episode, which actually is members only right now, but goes live tonight at 7 p.m. So you'll hear a little bit about it then. And just to let you guys know, everything that I do on YouTube is ahead of time. I typically, on a Tuesday night after I'm done streaming on Twitch, I record a video including all the writing that I've done for the past week. And then on Wednesday, I do the editing. And then Wednesday, around on midnight is usually when it goes live to members. And then the next Wednesday at 7 p.m. is when it goes live to everybody. So a little bit of this is explained in episode, I want to say 129. Is that what we're up to? Let's see. Let me check. I believe my show is up to episode 129. Now, hey Alice, by the way, could you do me a favor? Just in case I have issues, could you, since you're on Twitch, could you, if it's possible for you to download last night's VOD and just save that for me? Yeah, so the one that's going live tonight is episode 128. Okay. Walter, you're correct. Which was titled, Why Didn't Destroying the Ring Release Sauron's Power? Which is a very common question that actually nobody's ever asked me before recently. So, yeah. John the Warcrest. Thank you, Coyote. I work hard. I really do. I work hard on Twitch. I work hard on YouTube. I work hard on Quora. And I make a little bit of money doing it, and it's enough to pay the bills and everything. But right now, this is what we're... I know I can do that. My issue is I don't know if I'm going to have another PC crash in the middle of doing that. You know what I mean? And I don't want to put it on YouTube right away. I just want to, because I'm going to have to edit it. You work hard, you play hard. You like the thumbnail? That was by an artist. By the way, if you guys like my thumbnails, they're all Tolkien artists, and in every video, in the description, the thumbnail image credit will be in there. That's Anastasia Cemetery, which is listed as private while it exports. Okay, I could do that, but I would just feel better if myself or one of my friends had it, just saved. Because I do gotta edit it. But anyway, Anastasia Cemetery drew that picture of third age Sauron. I think whenever you use somebody's art, you gotta credit them, and unfortunately, that's not a super common thing on Quora. All those images that I use during the videos are images that I used on the Quora articles, and everything that I do is written on Quora. Even if you guys ask me the question on YouTube, what I do is I take it and I make it as a post on Quora. So it lowers the quality a little bit, but yeah, okay, yeah. It's not that big of a deal. I could probably download it. I just want to make sure that it's saved. I mean, we have time. Who are my favorite Tolkien artists? My absolute favorite Tolkien artist is Jenny Dolphin. Jenny Dolphin draws some of the greatest art, especially of the First Age characters. Like she draws an amazing version of Tour of Gondolin. Let me show you some of her art. Hold on. You guys, before we tell the story about the computer, let's have a little bit of fun. I think that's a great sort of question to talk about. What Jenny Dolphin's amazing. Let me put this up. Oh, hold on, I gotta fix it. It's looking for the wrong monitor because I switched to a different graphics card. So. There we go. Okay. There's Irendil. I think that's actually her. I I think that's supposed to be Maglor. You know, I mean, look at that, you know. She's definitely my favorite artist for Tolkien. That's not a Tolkien. This is a great, the thumbnail's bigger than the actual thing. A great image of Feanor and Fingolfin. You know, I've used a lot of these in my articles, and she's just really great. Another one that's great is, let's see, Elena Kukanova. Elena Kukanova is another great artist that draws a lot of Tolkien stuff. Look, another Maglor. There's a... Well, I think that's Elrond and Celebrian? Yeah, that's Elrond and Celebrian. You know, so there's some really great ones out there, you know. Finrod and Amaria. Definitely Maglor. Maglor seems like a lot of the Tolkien artists like to draw him. Who's this supposed to be? That's got to be Varda. Yeah. Nessa running with the deer. You know, she's another great one. Anyway, guys, let's actually go over to... Let's go over here. And let's tell the story of what happened with my computer, so you guys can know what's going on. Now I can't see the YouTube chat. One day you'll get into the Lord of the Rings. Well, start by reading The Hobbit. That's the natural starting place. There's the YouTube chat. Okay. Here, I'll show you Shiny Mudkip. Let's see if I can let us go over there. Yeah. Oh, okay, that's cool, Alice. Let's see if I can angle the webcam over to look at my bookshelf here. Yeah, so these are all the Tolkien books that I have ready for reference. The Hobbit is right here. And then, of course, we have The Lord of the Rings. The Silmarillion right here. This is Unfinished Tales. This is actually not a book by Tolkien, but it's The Ring of Words, which is a book about Tolkien. And then this, let's see, we have The Tolkien Reader, which is a collection of stories and essays that he wrote. And here we have The Fall of Gondolin, Beren and Luthien, The Fall of... No, I'm sorry, this is The Children of Húrin. That's Beren and Luthien. That's The Fall of Gondolin. There's The Fall of Númenor. His translation of The Green Knight. His translation of Beowulf. And that's the Middle-earth Atlas there. So let's... Oh! I know I've broken the illusion, but... broken the illusion that I'm actually sitting in Moria. The Hobbit was required reading in high school for you. Oh, okay. Okay, so... I'm going to tell the story, the computer story, but we have to just get this out of the way right now. I do need money for I need money for the new computer is basically what it comes down to. And I'm going to, at some point I'm going to make a GoFundMe, but at this point I don't have that set up. Where's the Middle-earth stories where everything works out for everyone and turned out okay? Well, not for everyone. I mean, The Lord of the Rings worked out for most characters. It didn't work out so great for Sauron. It didn't work out so great for Sauron. It didn't work out so great for Saruman. You hesitate to reread it for fear to ruin your childhood take? You know, I don't think it would. I reread The Hobbit quite often. When I first read it, I was about 8 years old, so I'm going to put my email address in both chats. If you have PayPal, and you can send me anything and everything helps. I'm going to put it in both chats. That's my email there on Twitch. That's my email there on YouTube. But let's tell the story first, and we'll set up a GoFundMe as well. Thank you for pinning that. So, okay, so I have to go back. Hey, Hitomi, how's it going? So I don't actually have Stream Elements. I don't even know what it is, to be honest. I've heard of people using that. But, yeah, right, let me just, we'll start by telling the story and get everybody caught up, especially on the YouTube side of things. How much do I think? Well, let me get to that. Okay, I'll answer all of your questions about that, but let me tell the whole thing. So the computer that I'm using is just about 6 years old. It's just a little bit under 6 years old, and it was built for me by somebody who... There were two different ladies that I knew that could do this sort of thing. And one is my friend Corin, and the other is this person whose name I'm not going to use for various reasons. But anyway, I chose her because she lived on the East Coast like me, and I thought, well, that would be faster and easier, and there would be not so much of a shipping cost involved in that. So, I gave her the money, she built the computer, she sent it to me, and Gray, with the language, please... When I'm on YouTube, please watch it. Thank you, Alice. Anyway, hi, sit-ins for Sithis. How's it going? So the computer was built, and it got to me, and I'm just demonstrating. I'm going back 6 years just to demonstrate how much of a headache this has been the whole time. And immediately, it didn't work properly. The issue was that as soon as I turned it on, everything came up, but the display was very garbled with a lot of sort of what looked like static on it, like TV static, if you're old enough to have seen TV static. Hi, Willpower. So anyway, it was the graphics card that was in it, which is a GeForce GTX 1660 Ti, which, if you know, is an older card, but at the time it was a fairly good mid-priced card, and it was not working properly. So what I had to do was take apart my old computer, and by the way, I hate doing surgery on computers, and take the older graphics card out of that one, the GTX 970, and put it into this computer. And so what happened was that worked, and then I said to the girl who put the computer together, because even though I sent her the money, she's the one that purchased all the parts and had all the paperwork and everything, and I said, you're going to have to go through the process of replacing this through the warranty, and we don't know, because she said that she tested it and that the display worked perfectly well before she sent me the computer. And I don't know if either A, something was damaged in shipping that caused it to do that, or B, there was an issue inherent to the card that didn't become apparent until it was sent to me, or C, she lied. Which, knowing what we know about her, that's where I lean, that I was just basically deceived, the voice of Sauron, and Saruman as well. Only thing worse than doing surgery on a computer is surgery on a grape. Nice. So anyway, and I had to stay on her about this. Eventually, I got the card replaced. I got it put in the computer, and it was still a problem. And it was still everything worked fine for like a while. But so these cards here, I have it right here. This is the actual card. Hey Teppo, how's it going? And as you can see, it has 3 fans. And if I hold it this way, I'll know which one was okay, so initially this one here was a problem. And you can see it's like actually slightly loose. This one doesn't move at all. This one's slightly loose. And it would get caught on whatever, like the heat sink, and start grinding and not spinning at full speed. I eventually got it working, but it would occasionally lapse back into that behavior and cause me all sorts of problems and headaches. And once I got it like kind of permanently fixed, this one up here started really acting up, and as you can see, this one here is very, very loose, and this one was causing all sorts of noises. Even when it was spinning properly, it was squealing. And there's nothing worse than trying to work and trying to, whether you're researching stuff or writing or streaming on Twitch or recording YouTube videos or whatever, and just hearing this constant squealing. It's extreme. So this is why I've been so stressed out these past few months. And I realized at this point, I got to do something about it. And it started doing grinding noises and all sorts of problems. So I spoke to Corin, who is my friend on the West Coast, who should have built the computer to begin with. And she I said, hey, here's my options. This is the way that I see it. I could try to replace the fan array, which everybody on the internet says is very easy. They make it sound like you could just pop this off and put a new one on and just plug it in and it'll work. And when I actually looked into it, it's actually way more complicated. You have to basically take the whole thing apart. You have to do surgery on the card itself. You have to use thermal paste, and it's just not in my skill set. So that would be the cheapest option, but it's difficult. Now, or I could just buy the same exact card and replace it, which would be still very affordable. But really, you know, at the point where I'm starting to think about getting the next PC, maybe a waste. You know, maybe just a Band-Aid on the situation. And then we could just get a newer card, or we could replace the whole computer. And with the finances the way they were, and from what the advice that I got was to buy a newer card, and then when I'm ready, she'll build me a new computer, which she quoted at $800. She'll buy me not buy me, but build me a really great computer for $800. And I said, really, $800? Why so little? And she says, well, you're already buying the graphics card for $400, so that you would be taken off of it, right? I would use that graphics card. So I said, that's a great idea. So I went on Amazon. I bought the new graphics card, which is a I thought I had the box here, but I don't. It's a Radeon 9060 XT. Anyway, I was excited to get it. Not so excited to do surgery on the PC and swap out the cards, but I said I have a lot of anxiety about doing that. Can I, call you on the phone and you walk me through everything? And she said, of course. That's great. And so this was Friday night, by the way. We're at Friday night. And I, took the PC apart. I got, with her instructions, I got the old card out, because it had been a long time since I've messed with this sort of stuff. It's been 6 years. Got the new one in, and when I pressed the power button, what happened was the computer lit up and turned on for about, I want to say, 4 seconds, and then would turn right off. And then it would automatically, without any input from me, turn back on, and then turn right off. It was basically starting and stopping. Yes, the GPU is absolutely the most expensive part in the PC. So I said, I explained to her what was happening, and she, we tried a few different things. She said, make sure it's in properly, make sure the power cables are connected properly. I did all that, and I have my camera on, and I'm showing her, and she says, it all looks right. And it was still the same issue. So she said, I'm starting to freak out. You know what I mean? I'm starting to, oh no, I just spent $420 on this thing, and it's not working. And, I start to hyperventilate and freak out. And she's a very calming influence, my friend Quora, and she's a really good egg. But anyway, as she said, well, there's a possibility that the card you got might have been a dud. And I said, that would be the second time that's happened to me. That's just my luck, isn't it? Isn't that my luck? So anyway, she said, well, let's just try putting the old card back in. So I did that. I took the old card and I put it back in, and the issue persisted. And that's not great, obviously. So now I really start to panic. I really start to worry. And she's like, and once again, we reviewed that the card was in properly, that the power cables are in properly, and everything's done. And she says, well, maybe your PSU, which is the power supply unit, is going or has gone. Maybe it had been on the verge of going, and it just went. And so we took apart what's known as the basement of the computer to look at the power supply, and she verified that the type of power supply I had supplies enough wattage for everything that I have in there. And basically there doesn't appear to be an issue. And she says your best bet at this point might be to take it to a micro center. And I said, well, I live in rural Pennsylvania and we don't have a micro center here. And I looked it up. The nearest one was a 2.5-hour drive. And I looked up all the local computer places. Keep in mind it's Friday night at this point. And most of them, the one that I was familiar with, opens on like a Monday, so it'd be the whole weekend. So I just called a bunch of places, and I left a bunch of messages, and only one of them ever called me back, by the way. I just want to point out that I called about 5 different computer repair businesses in my area, and only one ever even gave me the courtesy of a callback. So, this guy called me. His name was Kevin, local guy, young guy. And I explained the situation, and I said, I don't know, but I think it may be the power supply. And, he said that he could come by, not on Saturday, because I guess he was too busy on Sunday morning. He can come by, and this is when I posted on the YouTube community page that, I was having these issues and that I was going to have somebody come by to look at it on a Sunday morning. You mechanics, I didn't know you were a mechanic, Coyote. That's cool. You face similar problems with parts these days as well. Yeah. I can imagine. Everything's computerized, right? So anyway, he comes by and he tries it. He turns on the computer. It was doing the same thing, turning on and off constantly. He said that the card, which was still the old one, looked like it was in there properly. But he disconnected everything and reconnected everything. And it still did the problem. And he said, well, let's try the new one, and same issues, So he said, well, let's try the power supply. So he had brought a power supply that was for like a server. It was this big beast of a thing, and it took him a little while to hook it up to my computer, and then it was still doing the same thing, which told me that, there was nothing wrong with the power supply. There was something else going on. And let me tell you something. When you're sitting there and you got this kid elbows deep in your computer, your source of livelihood, your only source of income, and he keeps saying, interesting. It's extremely stressful. It's sort of like if a doctor is examining you and they say, well, that's not supposed to be there, That's sort of what it was like, So anyway, I have to drink water. Give me one moment. I'm sorry, guys. So, hey, Deborah, how's it going? Oh, it's morning where you are? Good morning to you. It's 1 p.m. here. I know I don't normally doing... Yeah, exactly. Shiny mud kit. Yeah, you don't want to hear uh-oh, you don't want to hear, like if you're having a tooth surgery or something, you don't want your dentist to go uh-oh. You know what I mean? That would be bad. That's what it was like. He's elbow deep in and like I said, all the income that I make is through the computer. Everything that I do that makes money is on the computer. So anyway, I'm silently panicking while he's working on it. So he thinks, well, maybe it's the actual physical slot that the memory card is seated into. It's called a PCI slot. There's 2 of them. He switched it to the other one. He had to take out my network card, which I didn't really need. May you live in interesting times. Exactly. Exactly right. So anyway, he got it in there, and somehow that worked. We figured, well, maybe it was just the slot, right? Hey, WT, how's it going? I'm still telling the story, so you're not coming in too late, WT. So basically, he said, well, maybe it was just the slot had gone bad for one reason or other, so he switched the graphics card to a different slot. The computer was running. He, plugged in the monitors and everything, and you could see Windows was coming up and everything, but then when he put the computer back up into the upright position, everything froze. So we had to shut everything down, bring it up, and everything was working until I went to move the computer, because it was where my legs would be when I'm sitting there, move it over to the side, and then it froze again. And so he got it running, but in a very precarious sort of situation where if my PC is moved or jostled in any minor way, even the act of plugging or unplugging a USB, it might just completely freeze. And I decided, all right, well, I just have to be very, very careful. I talked to Corinne about it, and she said, well, I think it's the motherboard, So, I was like, oh no, that's not good. That's important. So anyway, I tried to stream on what was it, Sunday night when we were playing. We were playing Mega Man, and basically it was working fine until suddenly I got the blue screen, the BSOD, the blue screen of death with the sad face that Windows gives you, and then I couldn't get the computer like running again, and it took me a while to get it up. And I spoke to Quora again, and she said it looks like what you're getting is a dueling driver. The drivers for the old graphics card were in there. So booted in safe mode, uninstalled all the display drivers, reinstalled the new ones for only the new card, and it started to work. And so then we get to Monday. Now, Monday, I had an issue with my webcam not working. That's a separate thing. And let me just say, like, the cavalcade of bad news also continued on Monday because my dishwasher stopped working. So that's like a whole other thing, right? I don't need a dishwasher to be working. I could wash dishes by hand, but I need a computer. You know what I mean? So anyway, I had to do a whole stream without a webcam, but it still worked, right? So I thought, well, maybe I'm in business. And after stream, I managed to get the webcam working. And this brings us to Tuesday night, which is yesterday. And I started streaming, and about halfway into the stream, my computer just froze. Did the thing that it would do, like if I had moved it or jostled it, even though I hadn't moved it or jostled it. And I tried to get it going, but it was doing the same thing of turning on and off and on and off and on and off. I went in there, I messed with some of the wires and tightened some things up, and I got it running. And it ran all night. I left it on just to see if it would stay on and continue to function. But as I was approaching to stream here for you guys today, I heard a bloop, which is the sound that the computer normally makes when I approach it because my phone is connecting to it. And I said, well, it's definitely working if I hear that bloop. But as I sit down, it froze again. So I had to turn it off and, turn it on again. So like I said at the beginning of stream, if at any point extremely bad luck, yes, so if at any point today, and we're going to be doing a bunch of Tolkien stuff, but at any point today, if the broadcast suddenly ends, you know why, and I will try my best to get it going again. If it stops suddenly, just maybe give me 5 minutes. If it doesn't, if I can't get it going, I'll post on the chat on Twitch on my phone and the community tab on YouTube saying, hey, I'm cooked here. So anyway, basically, the situation is very untenable. I need a new PC. I'm not at financially there right at this moment, but I am officially fundraising. So like I said, I am accepting any and all donations to my PayPal, which I put my email in both chats. I will also be setting up a GoFundMe. The goal right now would basically be $1,000. Maybe a little less, but basically it would cost me $800 for parts, and then the rest would be for shipping and labor. So, like I said, if you're on YouTube, my email address is in the chat. I'm gonna just post it again. Can I? Okay, pinning. Pinning is a thing. Okay, it is now pinned. It is also pinned on the Twitch chat. Now. So, thank you very much for anybody that might help me here. Okay, because this is like I said, if I don't have the computer, I can't answer your questions easily. I can't write articles. I can't stream on Twitch. I can't stream on YouTube. I can't work on Quora. I can't do anything. So, this is very, very necessary. So, moving over to some fun content, because I do have to entertain you guys. And by the way, anybody who, if you donate today during the stream, you could, no, I'm sorry, I don't, WT, I don't. This is the only computer I have. And let me give you some channel updates as well. But we're going to go over the quiz review, because I didn't get to record last night, obviously. We're going to review the results of the Tolkien quizzes for the past week. And if anybody donates during stream, I'll do a reading of your choice. Any book you want, any chapter you want, I'll read to you. Yeah, it's definitely the motherboard. Like, I got it to where it's definitely getting enough power. Sounds like a cold solder joint somewhere. No, I think it's physically damaged, to be honest with you. I think it's physically damaged. I think something happened. But anyway, let's talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow was going to be the Council of Tolkien. I don't feel confident enough in my ability to get through an entire stream to do that. If my PC freezes and it messes up my broadcast and it stops, that's one thing. But if I have Matt and Sid here and they're taking time out of their schedules to be with me and everything, and everything's connected with webcams and everything, that's a little worse to me. So I called Matt last night and I spoke to him, and he really wanted me to try to do it anyway, but I said there's no way. That he's really looking forward to the next episode. He must have a great topic, is all I could say. But I spoke with him, and he said when I get the GoFundMe set up, you can count him down for a donation. So that's cool too. But the sun will come out tomorrow, exactly. Then I managed to speak with Sid. Well, I couldn't get him on the phone, but I emailed Sid, and well, let me read you his email. I'm going to highlight to you guys what a lovely person Sid Kemp is. You guys know how great Matt is as well. Like I said, he really helped me calm down last night. But I got 2 emails from Sid. So this is the one that I got at 9 a.m. where he said, "Hi John, Sid here. Thanks for letting me know. I'm sorry this is happening, and I know you have the root issue well under control." Not really, but thank you, Sid. "Please do talk to me when your system is up and running again and before you reschedule the next live stream. The short version is that life will be much easier for me if we postpone the makeup stream live stream to November 20th, the week before Thanksgiving. It would be wonderful if we could do it then. And I have a fun idea, a simple, easy one that we can all do as a Thanksgiving theme. And I have another idea for bringing in some money for you. If I can do anything to assist with fundraising, perhaps jump on a call or send a video saying how great a person you are and that this is a worthy cause, just let me know." I haven't answered him yet, but I just want to demonstrate to you guys what great friends these guys are. Also, we were going to have a meeting on Thursday at 4, which that's the second email is about, that he said that I could just call him on the phone instead of, Yeah, Matt and Sid are great, great, wonderful people, and that's why I chose them to be on the show, not just because they have so much knowledge of Tolkien. There's so many writers on Quora that have fantastic knowledge of Quora, and some of them are also good people. But Matt and Sid not only have fantastic knowledge and are fantastic people, but they're really great friends. They're just, what the kids these days call ride or dies, Anyway, guys, let's start with a reading. Let's do a reading. What book do you know what? I know. I'm feeling a little bit, it's time for romantic here, Let's read a little poem that's a whole book called Beren and Luthien. I'm going to read you guys a little bit, and then we'll review the quizzes, go over the results, and explain the answers. Now let's see, which version do we want to read? There's so many different versions of what's known as the Lay of Luthien, which is the oldest, tale that Tolkien wrote. I kind of want to read perhaps a version of it that he has as a poem, The Tale of Tinuviel. Yeah, that's okay. Let's get to the poem version. Because like I said, this is here we are. Let's read a bit of this version here. Gorlim it was, who wearying of toil and flight and harrying, one night by chance did turn his feet o'er the dark fields by stealth to meet with hidden friends within a dale, and found a homestead looming pale against the misty stars all dark, save one small window whence a spark of fitful candle strayed without. Therein he peeped, and filled with doubt he saw as in a dreaming deep, when longing cheats the heart in sleep, His wife beside a dying fire, lament him lost her thin attire, and greying hair and paling cheek, of tears and loneliness did speak. Ah, fair and gentle Eiluned, whom I had thought in darkling hell, long since imprisoned ere I fled, I deemed I saw thee slain and dead, upon that night of sudden fear, when all I lost that I hold dear. Thus thought his heavy heart amazed, outside in darkness as he gazed. But ere he dared to call her name, or ask how she escaped and came, to this far vale beneath the hills, he heard a cry beneath the hills. There hooted near a hunting owl, with boding voice he heard the howl of the wild wolves that followed him and dogged his feet through shadows dim. Him unrelenting well he knew, the hunt of Morgoth did pursue. Lest Eiluned with him they slay, without a word he turned away, and like a wild thing winding led his devious ways o'er stony bed of stream and over quaking fen, until far from the homes of men he lay beside his fellows few. In secret place, and darkness grew, and waned, and still he watched unsleeping, and saw the dismal dawn come creeping. In dank heavens above gloomy trees, a sickness held his soul for ease, and hope, and even thraldom's chain, if he might find his wife again. But all he thought twixt love of lord and hatred of the king abhorred, and anguish for far Eiluned, who drooped alone, what tale shall tell? Yet at the last, when many days of brooding did his mind amaze, he found the servants of the king, and bade them to their master bring a rebel who forgiveness sought, if haply forgiveness might be bought, with tidings of Barahir the bold, and where his hidings and his hold might best be found by night or day. And thus sad Gorlim led away unto those dark deep dolven halls, before the knees of Morgoth falls, and puts his trust in that cruel heart, wherein no truth had ever part. Quoth Morgoth, Eiluned the fair, thou shalt most surely find, and there, where she doth dwell and wait for thee, together shall ye ever be, and sundered shall ye sigh no more. Thus guerdon shall he have that bore these tidings sweet, O traitor dear, for Eiluned she dwells not here, but in the shades of death doth roam, widowed of husband and of home, a wraith of that which might have seen. Methinks it is thou that hast seen. Now shalt thou through the gates of pain, the land thou askest grimly gain. Thou shalt to the moonless mists of hell descend and seek thy Eiluned. So there's a bit of one of the versions, one of the poetic versions. I'm going to give you guys another one that might sound a bit more familiar. If you know The Lord of the Rings, you know that the basic story of the tale of Beren and Luthien was told by Aragorn early on in, well, about halfway through Book 1, right after they... Hey, okay, Alice. Right after they had left Bree and were traveling to Rivendell, and at that one point, Aragorn and Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin were camping, and Aragorn told them the tale of Tinuviel, or what we would know as either the Lay of Luthien or Beren and Luthien. So I'm going to give you a second extract from the Lay of Luthien. This one was written in 1928. And this one might seem a little bit more familiar. An end there came when fortune turned, and flames of Morgoth's vengeance burned, and all the might which he prepared in secret in his fastness fled, and poured across the thirsty plain. And armies black were in his train. The leaguer of Angband Morgoth broke. His enemies in fire and smoke were scattered, and the orcs there slew, and slew until the blood like dew dripped from each cruel and crooked blade. Then Barahir the bold did aid, with mighty spear, with shield and men. Felagund wounded to the fen, escaping there they bound their troth, and Felagund deeply sware an oath of friendship to his kin, and seed of love and succour in time of need. But there of Finrod's children four were Angrod slain, and proud Egnor. Felagund and Orodreth then gathered the remnant of their men, their maidens and their children fair. Forsaking war they made their lair, and cavernous hold far in the south, on Narog's towering bank its mouth was opened, which they hid and veiled, and mighty doors that unassailed, till Turin's day stood vast and grim. They built by trees o'ershadowed dim, and with them dwelt a long time there Curufin and Celegorm the fair, and a mighty folk grew neath their hands in Narog's secret halls and lands. So there's another bit there. Welcome to Art World. Welcome to these hands, is what I would say to that. Okay, so what I'd like to do now here is, since I didn't get to do a normal video here, I would very much like to review the quiz results for the past week. Now, as I had mentioned, and by the way, the ones for the previous week will be in tonight's video. If you're not a channel member, the video, episode 128, will be going live at 7 p.m. tonight. So you'll be able to see the results for the previous week. But the results for this week, which I did not get to record, so I'm bringing it up on my phone here. I'm going to the community tab, and I'm sorting by newest. So let's see. I guess we should start with... Okay, so 7 days ago I posted this quiz. And here's the question. How many dwarves did Aule create? And the answers that were possible here were 7, 14, 21, or 13. Now, in the chat, let's see if anybody knows the correct answer. How many dwarves did Aule create? Can you see who answered what? No, I can only see the percentages. I can't see the accounts. When you guys answer these, it tells you whether you're right or wrong, and it tells you what the right answer was, and it should post my little blurb if I wrote one explaining, what was going on. By the way, you might notice there's no quiz today because I haven't had the chance to write the quizzes for the next week. But it doesn't tell you the percentages. I can only see that, but it doesn't tell me who voted for what. So the person that got it right here is Walter. The correct answer is 13. So we know from the Silmarillion, and I'm going to grab this part here, that he made 7 fathers of the dwarves, and that's what's mentioned here. And that is in the third section of the Silmarillion, which is called the Quenta Silmarillion. And then you go to chapter 3, which is of Aule and Yavanna. And I actually read the whole chapter in episode 128. But it is mentioned, I think the number is mentioned, that there were 7... Yeah, here it is. Then Aule took the 7 fathers of the dwarves and laid them to rest in far sundered places, and he returned to Valinor and waited while the long years lengthened. Now, you would think, well, what about the ladies involved here? And that we would go to... I'm not going to pull the book out right now because it's very big and heavy, but the peoples of Middle-earth, being, I think, the 9th or 11th part of... now I have to pull it out, of the history of Middle-earth. Now I have to do it. Let's take this video card and put it over here, maybe, so that it's not resting on my books. Volume 12. I was off. So here's the history of Middle-earth, part 3, which is 3 books here. We have Morgoth's Ring, The War of the Jewels, and The Peoples of Middle-earth. And The Peoples of Middle-earth is one of the most interesting books in here. Oh, wow, did I actually just open it to the correct place of dwarves and men? Did I just... Late Writings of Dwarves and Men. I think I just opened it right to the correct place. Yeah. The father tongue of the dwarves Aule himself devised for them, and their languages thus have no kinship with those of the Quendi. The dwarves do not gladly teach their tongue to those of alien race, and in use they have made it harsh and intricate, so that those few whom they have received in full friendship, fewer still have learned it well. but they themselves learn swiftly other tongues. Okay, that's more about their languages. This might not be... Yeah, this is more about their linguistics. I don't think this is the right section. Relations of the Longbeard dwarves and men. Not so much. Well, in one of these sections, it mentions that, of course, there were lady dwarves. There were the mothers of the dwarves, of which there were 6. So each of the fathers of the dwarves was given a mate to lay beside as they slept in the earth and would eventually wake up beside their mate, except for Durin. Durin awoke alone. He was not by the other dwarves. He had no wife. He had to find one later on, which would have been obviously from a different generation. And Durin is also the longest-lived mortal because he's not really mortal. But that we go into that a lot in, I think it was episode 128. I spoke a lot. 127. I spoke a lot about Durin. It was one of those episodes. So the correct answer was 13. 7 fathers, 6 mothers. Okay, so our next quiz. The elves... let me back up here. So let me just tell you that 23% of you got that right. 56%, which is the largest there, said that there were 7, which is what it says in the Silmarillion. But you have to know that that's not logical, that if you just make 7 men, you're not going to get anything from that. You need women as well. The Silmarillion, being the elvish account of what happened, does not account for the mothers of the dwarves. But Aule did create 13 dwarves. 16% of you said 14 dwarves. 6% of you said 21 dwarves. And 23% of you got it correct. It was 13 dwarves. Okay. So the next question, which was posted 6 days ago, the elves... Don't be embarrassed. These are not the easiest questions, Will. And the point is not to feel embarrassed or to feel like you don't have enough knowledge. The point is... There's 2 points, actually. One point is to learn something, and the other point is to have fun. So don't worry if you get it wrong, because let me tell you something. A few weeks ago, I gave all of the quizzes that I had posted to Sid. And let me tell you, he didn't get a lot of them right. And that doesn't mean that Sid doesn't know enough. It just means that his particular mind is not keyed to trivia. Now, somebody sent me a donation. Let me get in there. Hold on. My PayPal is not logged in. I do see a donation, and I thank you for whoever sent that. Seven was to... Yep. 7 was to... Willpower, thank you for the donation of $12.87. If you want me to read a particular thing, let me know. Okay? Let me know. Whatever you want me to read for you. After the quiz results, I'll do it for you. Okay, so I gave these quizzes to Sid, and he failed a lot of them. And that was why I started peppering in some easier questions. Because I want it to be fun for you guys. Matt did a little better, but still got a lot of them wrong. Not everybody's going to remember the trivia stuff, you know. So don't feel bad about getting them wrong. Okay, so here's the one from 6 days ago. The elves were called Eldar by Orma, but what did they call themselves before that? And we have 4 choices here. The children of Iluvatar, the elves, the Quendi, or the Tatyar. And let's see, who's the first person in chat that's going to get that correct? The choices are the children of Iluvatar, the elves, the Quendi, or the Tatyar. Okay, Sidon's for... Oh, I'm sorry, Walter, you're correct. It's the Quendi. And most people got this right. 73% of you got it right. Now, all of these are descriptions of elves. The children of Iluvatar is a broader term that not only covers elves, but also mortal men. So that they wouldn't have been calling themselves that at that point. They didn't know about Iluvatar. They wouldn't have called themselves the elves. The reason that they're called the elves is because of the term Eldar, which basically means the people under the stars. And when men started to use the languages, they started calling them elves. That what came later. Tatyar is one of the 3 original groups of elves, which basically it means the first ones. There was the Tatyar, the Minyar, and the I don't remember, but it's the first ones, the second ones, and the third ones. And they eventually became the Vanyar, the Noldor, and the Teleri. So they wouldn't have called... They some of them called themselves the Tatyar, but not all of them. Quendi is the correct answer. It means speakers. Because when the elves awoke in Middle-earth, they believed that they were the first beings in the world that spoke and used languages. And what happened was the first 3 elves awoke, and they had 3 women next to them, and they immediately fell in love. And they thought to themselves, these hot babes are going to wake up any moment, and we've got to come up with language so that we can say things to them and just tell them our feelings. So the women, the elvish women, eventually woke up, and they started speaking to them, and they invented the concept of language purely for romance. And so they called themselves, in their primitive language, which is called Quendian, which means speaking, and they called themselves the Quendi, which is the speakers. Eldar, which is the people under the stars, was what the Valar called them. Okay. All right, let's see. So here's our next one. Yep, the language of Riz, exactly. Okay, so here's the one from 5 days ago. Finwë was the only elf to ever be granted a divorce. What reasoning did he have that swayed the Valar to allow this? And I'm going to read the question again because the wording here is very, very specific. Finwë was the only elf to ever be granted a divorce. What reasoning did he have that swayed the Valar to allow this? So the choices here are he wished for more children. He was embarrassed to be the only Noldo without a wife. Miriel, who was his first wife, did not wish to return to life, and thus he should be allowed to move on, or none of the above. And while you guys ruminate that, I'm going to go over the results for the previous one. So 73% of you said Quendi, and that's correct. 19% said the children of Iluvatar, 6% said Tatyar, and 2% said elves. So overwhelmingly, you guys passed that quiz. Just really, really good result there. But let's see. Does anybody know what was the reason that specifically Finwë gave that swayed the Valar to basically annul his first marriage to Miriel so that he could marry Indis? You know that Miriel was his first wife. They had a son named Feanor, who became one of the greatest villains of all the elves. And then, of course, he married Indis, and they had 3 more children, one of which was Fingolfin, who was one of the greatest and mightiest elves out there in the First Age. She didn't actually die in childbirth. She actually died the next year, which, if you understand how Valian years work, Walter, it would be 9 years later, basically. So little Feanor was about 9 years old when his mother died. What happened, she didn't die during childbirth, but she used up almost all the energy in her body and gave it to Feanor, which is why he was so powerful, because his mother used the energy that she would have given to 4 children and gave it to 1. And then she became very tired, and eventually she just sort of laid down in the grass and went to sleep, and her spirit went from her body and went into Mandos, which is the closest thing that the elves have to death. They don't die, but this is the closest that they come to dying, is being in Mandos. And Mandos judged her, or Namo Mandos judged her to be innocent, that she hadn't done anything wrong, and that there is no reason that she should stay there, but she did not wish to return to life. She wished to rest. She was very tired. Eventually, don't say that, Sithis. Please don't say that. He did a lot wrong. Let's not even get into that whole rigmarole. But basically, I'm going to give you guys the correct answer here. The correct answer is none of the above. Now, it is true that all of these are things that Finwë said. He did say that he wished to have more children, but that did not sway the Valar. He did say that he was embarrassed to be the only adult Noldo that didn't have a wife, but that did not sway the Valar. He did say that as his wife would not return to the world of the living. I know it's a meme, but I really don't like that meme. He should be allowed to move on because he had fallen in love with the Vanyar princess, Indus. But that did not sway the Valar. By the way, 72% of you went for that Miriel did not wish to return to life, and thus he should be allowed to move on. 4% of you said he was embarrassed to be the only Noldo without a wife. 12% of you said he wished to have more children. All of those things are true, but none of them actually swayed the Valar. So anyway, it's none of the above. So you think, well, what did sway them? It was actually Nienna, who was one of the Valar. And she said that the only reason that such a thing should happen, that Miriel, in giving the energy of life to Feanor, and so much of it to create the young lad who was supposed to be the greatest and most wonderful elf of all time. Of course, that turned out really horribly. But the only reason that would have caused her that amount of fatigue and what we might refer to in our modern time as postpartum depression is because of the evil of Melkor in the world. So basically, Nienna brought up the point that this is all Morgoth's fault. This is before he was called Morgoth, because it was Feanor that gave him that name after he killed Finwë. But anyway, what happened was Nienna said, a blossoming love between Finwë and Indus is a beautiful, wonderful thing that may heal the world of the evil that's in it. And that's what changed their mind. And they came up with what was called an Aksan, which is a law, which is all explained in the book Morgoth's Ring, about the customs of what would have to happen in the instance of Finwë's marriage being annulled. And that basically that if Miriel, who is innocent and should not have to stay in Mandos if she does not wish to, we ever changed her mind and decided to return to her body and live again, then Finwë would have two wives, and they can't have that. So what they said, so it was Nienna that came up with the idea that she should be able to live in the world if she wanted to enjoy her body, to enjoy having a body, and that she would just live apart from Finwë. So basically, Nienna invented the concept of divorce as a tool to heal the world, because it was such a great romance. Tolkien never got to really write the detailed account of the romance between Finwë and Indus, but a little bit of it is in, I think, The Peoples of Middle-earth, where you could read a bit about when he first saw her and the feelings that he had. Okay, but you guys, I think that, I thought that everybody would get this right, and I'll tell you why. Because whenever you make a multiple choice quiz and you put an answer like none of the above or all of the above, it usually is that. And people tend to go, well, let's go for that, just to sort of like play the long con, I guess. But you guys didn't go for it so much, and I can't blame you, because all of those things are true. He did say all those things. He just didn't necessarily, they didn't necessarily sway the valor. I got a comment here from LCR who said, nice one, careful readers only. And that's the truth, because he had to, it's not which argument did he give, because he gave all of these arguments, but which argument did he give that actually swayed the valor. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is one that you guys did pretty good at this, actually. Which of these is the meaning of the dwarf Gimli's name? You guys are familiar with Gimli, of course. What is his name, Gimli? What does that mean? Does it mean fire? Does it mean sense of hearing? Does it mean star? Or does it mean one of the afterlife? And this is one it's a little tricky, but you guys did pretty good here. I want you to guess in the chat. I want to see who gets it first. But I will tell you that 40% got it right. Not a majority, but a plurality, more than any other. Sit-ins for Sithis is correct. The meaning is fire. Now, all of these other translations also are valid translations of the name Gimli. It can mean sense of hearing, it can mean star, and it can mean one of the afterlife. However, in one of his letters, specifically letter 297, Tolkien stated that in relation specifically to this particular dwarf, it was related to the Old Norse word gim, which is Gimm, which means fire. So that's where the name comes from, fire. Okay, here's one from 3 days ago. Oh, let me go over so I said 40% of you got that right. 18% said sense of hearing, 31% said star, and 11% said one of the afterlife. It's not that any of these are particularly wrong. It's just that in relation to Gimli specifically, that character, it means fire. He's, of course, not the only Gimli. There's very few characters who have names that are not shared by other characters. The hobbits tend to be very unique. They tend to be only one for each name. All right, although in the Fourth Age that wound up changing because Sam named a lot of his children after people that he knew. One of his children was Frodo. One of his children was Bilbo, for example. One of his children was, I think there was a Merry and a Pippin as well. And to Pippin, does anybody know what Pippin only had a one child. He had a son. Does anybody know what Pippin's son's name was? Let's see who gets this while I go over the next one. Okay, so now we're going to talk about another name, and you guys did really good on this one. I think the reason that you guys did so well on this one, which is which of these does the name Bjorn not mean? And I think the reason so many of you guys got this right was because I've talked about it so much. I think that I think that because I've talked about it so much. Now, I just got a text message here. Yes, you're right. It's Faramir. You're right. It's Faramir. Faramir Took. Okay, I just got a text message from the guy who came to help me with the computer. Just letting him know that the payment that I sent went through. I think I should call him and kind of let him know what's going on. Let me see if he answers the phone real quick. I'll let him know that I'm live on, that I'm broadcasting. Kevin? Hey, Kevin, it's John. Hey, just to let you know, I'm live right now. I'm broadcasting, but they can't hear you or nothing. But I'm just letting you know. It's kind of working. Well, one thing that I found was that the ATX cable was not connected properly. Okay. And I got that in, and that solved the power issues where it kept turning off. Yeah. but it still crashes if I move it, and sometimes randomly, and all things point to the motherboard is just dying.
I think so.
So yeah, so my friend on the West Coast offered to send me a spare motherboard, which I guess I could ask you to install that at some point. But I'm trying to raise money for a new computer is what I'm doing right now. So because that would just be, because what else is gonna? At what point does it become the ship of Theseus?
Right. Oh, say that again?
I said, like if I just replace the mother, it's like it's the ship of Theseus at that point.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm trying to raise money. I'm doing like a sort of fundraising live stream right now, but for a new computer. But yeah, I just want to let you know that there was an issue with the ATX cable that 4 of the pins weren't connected.
Oh, okay.
It was just sort of like floppy hanging there, and I don't think that was something that you did. I think that might have been something that I did because the power was an issue before you got here.
Yeah.
But when I showed her, my friend Quora, I said I found a thing that wasn't plugged in, and I plugged it in, and it worked. Not worked, but at least turned on. And I took a picture of it. She said it was the ATX cable and that it basically was starved for power. I left it on overnight. And as I was approaching the PC to do this live stream, I heard a little like Windows bloop, which it always happens when I walk near it because my phone connects to it. So I thought, oh, wonderful, it was on all night and it's still functioning. But as soon as I sat down and tried to move the mouse, it froze up again. So I'm still having those issues. If anything jostles in there, it just goes dead.
Yeah. I mean, it could be maybe the board's not in there tight or something. Maybe one of the screws or something.
It's possible. It's just strange. Like it crashed on me just from it taking a USB out and putting a new one in at one point. And I also had issues where I had conflicting drivers. I took care of that. But anyway, I do have to get back to the live stream. I wanted to let you know what I was doing and everything. I'm glad to get the payment. If I decide to go that route, I'll give you a call.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay? All right.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye. All right. See, he wouldn't take PayPal. He wanted Zelle. But for whatever reason, it did. Wow. Okay. Which one of you guys is Samuel Harrison? I just got a donation from a Samuel Harrison, and wow, very generous. I thank you very much. That's when I make the GoFundMe, we'll be taking off some of the. Oh, I spelled my password wrong. Oh, made 2 typos in it. How generous? $100. Hold on, let me get into my PayPal here. Oh, that's not even the password. I definitely speak up. That's UKH. I'll do a reading for you. All right, I can't get into PayPal right now. I'll worry about it later. Thank you very much. Hello from Singapore. Hello from the United States. Hello from Middle Earth. Actually, hello from Moria. Hello from Moria. Barak Kazad. Kazad on menu. The doors are upon you. I'll get into PayPal later. I'm not going to deal with this right now. You are a true melon, which of course is the Elvish word that means 2 things. It means friend and it also means lover. In this case, it's friend. But I love you right now. Thank you very much. That's going to help a great deal. Let's return to and both KH. You and from the Netherlands. Wow, we have people all over the place, huh? That's wonderful. Actually, I have a friend in the Netherlands, specifically in the region of Holland, that you may have heard of. His name is Arjen Lucassen. Good friend of mine. Tell me if you know who he is. He's somewhat famous. But anyway, what was I saying? KH and also Will Power, you both donated during the stream. So I'm going to ask if you could let me know. Oh, Malaysia. Wow. Wow, we have people all over. That's so cool. That's so wonderful. If you want me to do a specific reading for you guys, let me know what book, what chapter. I'll read to you guys. I'll do specific readings for KH and for Will. Kuba, you're from Poland. Wow. Did I say your name right? Dirndingle. Wow, we got people all over the place. Flying in from all over. You don't have a cool country to say? Well, what country are you from? If it's from the United States, if you're from like the United States, like I am, admit it's sort of boring, right? That's not great. There's not much interesting about the United States, I guess. But anyway, let's yeah. He's a YouTuber or something? No, he's a musician. Arjen Lucassen is a musician. He has a band, well, he has a few bands, but the one that he's most known for is called Arion. And he also has another music project called Star One, and he has some solo albums out there. He was just knighted, actually. He was just knighted about a few months ago. The Awakening of the Elves? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, and I have the Silmarillion, or I could perhaps go to the more detailed account if you want. Yes, absolutely. Let me write that down. What about you, Will? If you're still there. We'll do it after the quiz results. Thank you very much. That's a big, 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 big help. Big help for the new computer. Yes, the king came to his house and everything. He showed me pictures. Arjen's a really, really wonderful guy. He's a musician that I admired for a really long time, and I sent him an email back in 2004, which was basically just a review of his at the time what was his new album, which was called The Human Equation, and I was very, very fond of it. And I just sent him this email just telling him what I thought of it, and to my surprise, he replied. And we became pen pals, and basically just we talk on Facebook and we talk on email and everything, and we just became friends over the years. And it didn't even occur to me that it had been so long when I thought, yeah, I've known him since 2004. I'm like, oh my God, that's a long time ago, isn't it now? I've known him for a long time. But yeah, I'm wonder, like I said, he's pretty famous in Europe and specifically the Netherlands. You know, it's not a large country, but when you have like a, you know, sort of a celebrity like that you could be very proud of, because he is a great guy and an extremely talented musician who plays just about every instrument you can think of. But I don't know if you're into his type of music. Is he also a Lord of the Rings fan? He's a little bit more of a science fiction fan, actually. He's more into science fiction, which I love. I'm very, very fond of science fiction myself. So when we talk about that sort of stuff, that's what we talk about. But he does delve into a little bit of like the King Arthur stuff, because he had a song. Well, his first album was called the Final Experiment, which was about the world dying in the year 2084, and the scientists sent back these images of everything that was happening to try and send it to the past, to the 11th century, to see if we could maybe get humanity on a different track. And it wound up going to a blind minstrel whose name is Arion. And no, he doesn't play Warhammer. And Arion goes to the court of King Arthur, and he sings his tales. He winds up getting killed by Merlin, and then his soul goes to Mars. It's a whole thing. But yeah, he does dabble a little bit in some of the King Arthur mythos in his work, which is all connected into one sort of legendarium like Tolkien. But it's definitely focused on the science fiction end of it, you know. All right, let's return to quiz review. I will do that reading for you, KH. Did you want the Silmarillion account of the Awakening of the Elves, or did you want the more detailed account? I think you want the more detailed account, because the Silmarillion just really has Aurum of finding them already. It doesn't really talk about the Awakening. So I'll bust out the detailed account actually for you. All right, so I'm all out of sorts here. Thank you so much for that. What was the last one we did? Let's see. Oh, okay. We were going to talk about Bjorn, and a lot of you guys, 66% of you guys got this right. because I talk about Bjorn so much, because he's so fascinating to me, because of his connection to Beowulf, which is one of the most oldest and most important myths of European culture. Which of these does the name Bjorn not mean? Eater of honey, man, bear, or wolf? Which of these does it not mean? Okay, so we're looking for the one that is not a translation of Bjorn. Let's see if you guys know this. Now, I got a great... Sidon Specifis commented on this saying it was easy. A sweet guy. What's interesting is that he wasn't so sweet in the book. He was sort of a rude person, but that's because he was based off of Beowulf, who was sort of very taciturn, you know? But he was a good person. You guys are correct, wolf. So if you add eater of honey and man and bear and wolf together, what you get is Beowulf. But if you extract wolf from that, and you just mix these Old English words for man and bear, and of course bear essentially being derived from eater of honey, you get Bjorn. And there are two characters, well, actually there are three characters that Tolkien wrote about, two in the Legendarium, one outside of it, that are based in one way or another off of Beowulf. Now, the first one is Bjorn, and he's from this book, The Hobbit. This is my childhood copy, so it's not in the most amazing shape, but there it is. And he doesn't go through an arc like Beowulf did, but his personality, the gruffness, and the sort of just straight to the point, almost rude sort of way of speaking, but also the way that he is also joyful, and the way that he can be stern, and everything about him is based off of Beowulf. What would man, bear, pig be? I believe that is Al Gore. I've seen that episode. The second character would be from this book here, The Children of Húrin, which would be Turin Turambar, because he goes through a very similar journey. And if you think about the roles of the dragon, and you think about Grendel and everything, you can see the Children of Húrin as being a dark reflection of Beowulf. You love a good South Park. I've become less and less of a South Park fan over the years, but I do appreciate references to back when it was funny. I think that they kind of flew a little too close to the sun. I think they started to make it all one big story, and I started to get bored with it. The third character, which does not exist in the Legendarium, but is a Tolkien character, can be found in many different collections. This is the one that I have, which is called the Tolkien Reader, which I got this at a bookstore in upstate New York for like 50 cents. And the story was called Farmer Giles of Ham, which is a lighthearted and comedic take on Beowulf. So I would recommend that book, by the way, if you haven't. Or if you want a better collection than this, actually, there's a collection called Tales from the Perilous Realm, which has everything that's in here, but it also has a few extras that are not in here. But just to go over what is in here, there's some great translations of poetry. The Homecoming of Bjornoth, Bjornhelm's son. Tolkien's Magic Ring, which is a small collection of essays that he wrote. Al Gore is a dark reflection of Beowulf, perhaps. Tree and Leaf, which is an essay, and also the story Leaf by Neagle, which was Tolkien's only use of literary allegory, where he explained his writing process and his creativity through this little man, you know. Al Gore standard 11. And also The Adventures of Tom Bombadil and Farmer Giles of Ham are in here. So if you get the larger version, which is Tales from the Perilous Realm, you get other stories such as Roverandom, which is a cute little tale of a dog going on adventures, and Anyway, 66% of you got that correct, that it was wolf. 20% said eater of honey. 8% said man. 5% said bear. So pretty good. Pretty good. Definitely a pass. A majority, even. Where did the name Necro come from? Hold on, I'll grab that for you. I'll tell you, and I'm being really honest here, Fishing Michigan. I'm being really honest. This is exactly where it came from. I have to find the exact passage here. When I was about 8 years old, I became fascinated by this one little passage here in The Hobbit. Here it is. "I don't understand," said Thorin, and Bilbo felt he would have liked to say the same. The explanation did not seem to explain. "Your grandfather," said the wizard, slowly and grimly, "gave the map to his son for safety before he went to the mines of Moria. Your father went away to try his luck with the map after your grandfather was killed, and lots of adventures of a most unpleasant sort he had, but he never got near the mountain. How he got there I don't know, but I found him a prisoner in the dungeons of the necromancer." So, divorced from the plot of The Hobbit is this mention of something called a necromancer. And Thorin shudders, and all the dwarves shiver. They're very afraid of it. Now, keep in mind, these guys are planning to go towards Smaug. They want to deal with Smaug, the dragon. But there was something much darker out there that they were more afraid of. Now, there's another passage where it comes in, which is right around here. In the chapter Queer Lodgings, which is the chapter about Bjorn, actually. Here it is. No, said Bilbo, "I didn't mean that. I meant is there no way round? There is if you care to go 200 miles or so out of your way north and twice that south. But you wouldn't get a safe path even then. There are no safe paths in this part of the world. Remember, you are over the edge of the wild now and in for all sorts of fun wherever you go. Before you could get around Mirkwood in the north, you would be right among the slopes of the Grey Mountains, and they are simply stiff with goblins, hobgoblins, and orcs of the worst description. Before you could get round it in the south, you would get into the land of the necromancer. And even you, Bilbo, won't need me to tell you tales of that black sorcerer. I don't advise you to go anywhere near the places overlooked by his dark tower." So, there are two mentions there of this evil that's even greater. And, well, there's another one towards the end where Gandalf says that he drove the necromancer out of the forest. And then in the sequel, we learn that it's Sauron. So when I was a teenager, and I was connecting to the internet for the first time, I had to come up with we had AOL. I had to come up with a screen name, and I thought I should do something related to Sauron the necromancer, and that's where that comes from. I would much rather deal with Smaug than Sauron. There's no question there. It's not close. All right. Here's our next quiz question. This was from 2 days ago. Actually, the next two are related because I decided to ask two questions about the 1967 animated film of The Hobbit. Now, if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, 1967, that doesn't sound right. Wasn't it in the 70s? Yes, there was an animated Hobbit film in the 70s, which was made by an animation studio called Rankin Bass. And it aired on television. I remember seeing it when I was young. I wasn't in the 70s. I'm not that old, but I remember seeing it and thinking it was pretty good. I think it still holds up pretty well. But anyway, there was one from 1967. It was about 13 minutes long, and it was an ash can. And an ash can is sort of something that you make that to hold on to the rights to something, because when you purchase the rights to adapt a certain work, there's all these clauses. It depends on the laws and customs of your land, and it also depends on the actual contract wording. But generally speaking, if you purchase, say, the rights to make a a movie based on The Hobbit, and then you don't make it, eventually you lose the rights. There's an expiration date. So they made a very short, very minimally animated film, and it was shown to just a few people, and just the fact that it existed was never released in any form until many, many years later when it was put on the internet. You could watch the whole thing on YouTube. As a matter of fact, you could watch it with my commentary on my own channel, of course. I actually also started watching the Rankin Bass Hobbit. I haven't gotten back to that because I've been busy, and then my computer started messing up and a whole bunch of other things. It was like a cavalcade of nonsense. But anyway, I have 2 quiz questions about specifically the 1967 Hobbit, and this is the first one. Which of these facts about the 1967 animated version of The Hobbit did I make up? So 3 of these are correct and 1 is not. So let's see if you guys here in the chat get this correct. So the first one is that Bilbo marries a princess named Mika at the end. The second one is that the One Ring was left out of the story. The third is that Smaug is called Slag and is killed by the Arkenstone. And the last one is that Thorin was a general of Dale. So let's see. Well, you know what? They've made several Fantastic Four films, and most of them, there are 2 that are not Ashcans. One is the most recent one, which I haven't seen. And the other was the Silver Surfer one. That was not an Ashcan. But all of the other ones were. I haven't seen the most recent one. I've heard it was good, though. But the very first one from the 90s was not released. That was directed by Roger Corman, which is interesting. And no, Alice, the One Ring was not left out of the story. The one that I made. Oh no, sorry. That is correct. That was the one that I made up. You're right. Boo. My brain is on the fritz right now. So, despite the fact that this is a 12-minute movie that doesn't really follow the story of The Hobbit all that well, it adds all this stuff like a princess that Bilbo marries, and the Arkenstone being fired into Smaug by Bilbo, by the way, to kill him, and that Thorin is a general of Dale. It also does include Gollum and the One Ring. Even though it has nothing to do with the resolution of the story, they did include that. And here's our last one here. Continuing from yesterday's quiz. Oh, let me go over the results there, actually. Managing too much data and emails. Well, this will be live. If you want to go back and review it, Deborah, this will be live on YouTube right after this. It's not going to have a members only phase. It's just going to be right there on YouTube for everybody to watch. So if you need to go back. Well, the 2005 one actually was an Ashcan. It just was one that was a big budget Ashcan that was released. You know, the sequel was not, though. You've been loving the quizzes. Hopefully sometime today I can get today's quiz out and schedule all the other ones. I was going to do it last night, but my computer wasn't working. Here's the last one. Which of these facts about the 1967... I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Which of the following statements regarding the production of the 1967 Hobbit cartoon did I make up? Now, this is about the making of it. Which of these did I make up? So here we have the film was shown once in a projection room in Manhattan. All attendees had to sign a statement saying they had seen a Hobbit film. The director never spoke about the film again. And the film rights were sold back to Tolkien for around $100,000. It's spelled like that. It's just one word, Ashcan. And to go over the actual results, 15% of you, by the way, got the right the previous one right, that the One Ring was left out of the story. That was something that I made up. The plurality here was Bilbo marrying the princess. 41% of you went for that. I think you guys were like, there's no way they would put that in there. Especially if you're making a 12-minute film, why would you be adding things to it? The director actually felt that he was improving the story by adding a romance to it. 17% of you went for Smaug being called Slag and being killed by the Arkenstone, and 27% went for Thorin being a general of Dale. So there you have it. But yeah, he thought he was improving the story. Now, Matthew, you're correct. The director never spoke about the film again. That was something that I made up. I feel like Jonathan Frakes right now. Nope, made it up. So the director was this guy named Gene Deitch, and he actually spoke about it in his blog, and he revealed its existence, and that the producer's son had a copy of it that he put on YouTube. And that's how we got to see it for the first time. So, and it is wild. It is so crazy. Hubris of the director? Yeah, I suppose so. Because they're basically telling you, hey, look, here's this. You got to make a movie based on The Hobbit. Make it as cheap as you can. Make it short, where nobody's ever going to really see it. It's just so I can hang on to the rights, and if I sell them back to Tolkien, I can get good money for it. And Tolkien paid him $100,000 to get the rights down, or the equivalent in British pounds, of course. And of course, then Tolkien wound up selling the rights for $600,000. So he made money off of that deal, a lot of money. But anyway, especially considering it was the '60s. Yeah, he did eventually talk about it. He told people about it, and then all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Wow, is this lost media, or is this something that we can see?" And the producer's son had a copy of it. So basically what they did is it had to be shown to people who were a paying audience. So what they did was, in Manhattan, there was a projection room, and they got like a group of people, and they gave the producer, he gave everybody that was going to see the film a dime, and that they paid the dime back to him so that they would technically be a paying audience. Bilbo Goes to Vietnam. I know what you're referencing, Alice. You are referencing that underground cartoon, Mickey Mouse Goes to Vietnam, which is just crazy. But anyway, Bilbo Goes to Vietnam. Oh, that would be terrible. Anyway, I'm going on an adventure. They paid the dimes back, but then they had to sign sort of an affidavit saying, yes, I paid money to see an animated Hobbit film, just so that they could prove that it did happen, But yeah, that's all the quiz results. You guys did pretty good on that one. Well, Matt, actually, no, you didn't. 51% of you went for the film rights being sold back to Tolkien. 29% of you got it right. 13% went for the signing, and 7% was the film being shown in a projection room in Manhattan. I did not make those up. Those were truths. The truth is stranger than fiction. Now, I have a reading to do for KH. Let me just get that set up here, guys. Hopefully, if my computer is going to crash, it doesn't happen during this. And then you hear Fortunate Son instead of The Hobbit. So instead of, the greatest adventure, it's, it ain't me, I ain't no senator's son, Oh my God, I kind of want somebody to make that now, even though it would be absolutely horrific. The morbid curiosity here, right, has taken over, and I'm just kind of curious to see that, All right, KH, hopefully you're still there. I'm preparing to do your reading here. All right, let's see. Give me a moment here. Okay, so I think I think this book should do, right? Because I believe the one that we're looking for here is Morgoth's Ring. Such thin pages. Part 2, The Annals of Aemon, page 45. Here we are. I need to find the awakening of the elves. Spring of Arda. Okay, we're getting there. Oh, I went too far, didn't I? I might not be in the right section. I will find it for you. That's not it, no. Alright, hold on. Let me find the more detailed account. Let me do a search here. There's, there's a lot of material to get through. Let's see. Ah, it's War of the Jewels. Okay. Yes, the War of the Jewels. Quendi and Eldar. That's what we want to go to. All right. Because Morgoth's Ring just sort of goes over it very quickly, you know. All right, let's see. I gotta find what page this is going to be on. Okay, that's Morgoth's Ring. All right. I need the second section, the War of the Jewels. Here's the index to Morgoth's Ring. Okay, here we are. Here's the beginning of the War of the Jewels. Let's see. Of men... Oh, the Grey Annals is the first part right here. Okay, so I gotta get past the forward. Actually, not the Grey Annals. Quendi and Eldar is what I need. Of men, of the siege of Angband, of Valerian and its realms. Ooh, Quendi and Eldar. Where are you? Quendi and Eldar. Page 357. Okay. That's towards the end of it. Here we are. Is this it? Oh, I don't think it is. I'll get it for you, I promise. Yeah, this is just about the language. It should be the Legend of the Awakening of the Quendi. I think I'm in the right section, I just have to keep going. War of the Jewels is your perfect favorite story of the older days. It really is quite fascinating, isn't it? Ah, the appendix, here we are. The Legend of the Awakening of the Quendi at the Quinviana. Here we are. According to the legend, preserved in almost identical form among both the elves of Aemon and the Sindar, the three clans were in the beginning derived from the three elf fathers, Eamon, Tata, and Enel, 1, 2, and 3, and those whom each chose to join his following. So they had at first simply the names Minyar, or firsts, Tatyar, or seconds, and Nelyar, or thirds. These numbered out of the original 144 elves that first awoke, 14, 56, and 74, and these proportions were approximately maintained until the separation. A form of this legend is found in a single typescript with carbon copy. On one copy my father wrote, and similarly, but more briefly on the other, actually written in style and simple notions to be a surviving elvish fairy tale or child's tale, mingled with counting lore. Corrections to either copy are taken up in the text that follows. Welcome to the jungle for Mirkwood. Nice. While their first bodies were being made from the flesh of Arda, the Quendi slept in the womb of the earth beneath the green sward, and awoke when they were full grown. But the first elves, also called the Unbegotten, or the Iru-begotten, did not all wake together. Iru had so ordained that each should lie beside his or her destined spouse. But the 3 elves awoke first of all, and they were elf men, for elf men are more strong in body and more eager and adventurous in strange places. These 3 elf fathers are named in the ancient tales Imin, Tata, and Enel. They awoke in that order, but with little time between each, and from them, say the Eldar, the words for 1, 2, and 3 were made, the oldest of all numerals. Imin, Tata, and Enel awoke before their spouses, and the first thing that they saw was the stars, for they woke in the early twilight before dawn. And the next thing they saw was their destined spouses lying asleep on the green sward beside them. Then they became so enamored of their beauty that their desire for speech was immediately quickened, and they began to think of words to speak and sing in. And being impatient, they could not wait, but woke up their spouses. Thus the Eldar say, the first thing that each elf woman saw was her spouse, and her love for him was her first love, and her love and reverence for the wonders of Arda came later. Now after a time, when they had dwelt together a little, and devised many words, Imin and Iminya, Tata and Tatia, Enel and Enila, walked together, and left the green dell of their waking, and they came soon to another larger dell, and found there 6 pairs of Quendi. And the stars were again shining in the morrow dim, and the elf men were just waking. Then Imin claimed to be the eldest, and to have the right of the first choice, but he said, I choose these 12 to be my companions. And the elf men woke their spouses. And when the 18 elves had dwelled together a little, and had learned many words and devised more, they walked on together. And soon in another, even deeper and wider hollow, they found 9 pairs of Quendi. And the elf men had just waked in the starlight. Then Tata claimed the right of second choice, and he said, I choose these 18 to be my companions. Then again the elf men woke their spouses, and they dwelt and spoke together, and devised many new sounds and longer words. And then the 36 walked abroad together, until they came to a grove of birches by a stream. And there they found 12 pairs of Quendi, and the elf men likewise were just standing up and looking at the stars through the birch boughs. Then Enel claimed the right of third choice, and he said, I choose these 24 to be my companions. Again the elf men woke their spouses, and for many days the 60 elves dwelt by the stream, and soon they began to make verse and song to the music of the water. At length they all set out together again, but Imin noticed that each time they had found more Quendi than before, and he thought to himself, I have only 12 companions, although I am the eldest, I will take a later choice. Soon they came to a sweet-smelling firwood on a hillside, and there they found 18 pairs of Quendi, and all were still sleeping. It was still night, and clouds were in the sky. But before dawn a wind came and roused the elf-men, and they woke and were amazed at the stars, for all the clouds were blown away, and the stars were bright from east to west. And for a long time the 18 new Quendi took no heed of the others, but looked at the lights of Menel. But when at last they turned their eyes back to the earth, they beheld their spouses, and woke them to look at the stars, crying to them, Elen, Elen, and so the stars got their name. Now Imin said, I will not choose again yet, and Tata therefore chose these 36 to be his companions, and they were tall and dark-haired and strong like fir trees, and from most of the Noldor later were sprung. And the 96 Quendi now spoke together, and the newly waked devised many new and beautiful words, and many cunning artifices of speech, and they laughed and danced upon the hillside, until at last they desired to find more companions. Then they all set out together, until they came to a lake dark in the twilight, and there was a great cliff about it upon the east side, and a waterfall came down from the height, and the stars glittered on the foam. But the elf-men were already bathing in the waterfall, and they had waked their spouses. There were 24 pairs, As yet they had no formed speech, though they sang sweetly, and their voices echoed in the stone, mingling with the rush of the falls. But again Eamon withheld his choice, thinking next time it will be a great company. Therefore Enel said, I have the choice, and I choose these 48 to be my companions. And the 144 Quendi dwelt long together by the lake, until they all became of one mind and speech, and were glad. At length Eamon said, It is time now that we should go on and seek more companions, but most of the others were content. So Eamon and Eminye and their 12 companions set out, and they walked long by day and by twilight in the country about the lake, near which all the Quendi had awakened, for which reason it is called Cuivienen. But they never found any more companions, for the tale of the first elves was complete. And so it was that the Quendi ever reckoned in 12s, and that 144 was for long their highest number, so that in none of their later tongues was there any common name for a greater number. And so also it came about that the companions of Eamon, or the eldest company, of whom came the Vanyar, were none the less only 14 in all, and the smallest company, and the companions of Tata, of whom came the Noldor, were 56 in all. But the companions of Enel, although the youngest company, were the largest. From them came the Teleri, or Lindar, and they were in the beginning 74 in all. Now the Quendi loved all of Arda that they had seen, and green things that grew, and the sun of summer were in their delight, but none the less they were ever moved most in the heart of the stars, in the hours of twilight and clear weather, at Morodim and at Evendim, were the times of their greatest joy. For in those hours in the spring of the year they had first awakened life in Arda. But the Lindar, above all the other Quendi from their beginning, were most in love with water, and sang before they could speak. Late night oh, did I skip something? Hold on. There's only a little bit left. Oh, that's it, actually. The next note's from Christopher. So there you have it. That's the Awakening of the Elves. Thank you so much for the very generous donation, KH. That's really, really going to help me out here. Let me catch up on chat here. Some people already have Steelheart and Silksong. I haven't even played it yet. Let's see. Oh, a lot of people on YouTube talking here. Let me just catch up here. Hey, Spiedelcarb, how's it going? The Hobbit movie was long believed to be 1966, but it seems that it was actually the event of it being shown was in 1967. If you look on my channel, you can find my analysis of it, which includes a reaction to the entirety of it. But yeah, the 1966 date is actually incorrect. It was long believed to be that. And no, thank you, KH, for the generous donation. And like I said, if anybody wants to help me out in this endeavor of getting a new computer, because I really very badly need to replace the computer I have, it crashes randomly, and I can't get any work done. But my email address is necrovmx@gmail.com. It is pinned to both chats, and if you do a donation during today's stream or tomorrow's stream, because I will be streaming tomorrow as well, I will do a special reading for you. I do owe one to William Power, but he doesn't seem to be here right now, so we'll have to ask him when I see him. I also wanted to let me get into my PayPal here. Is the choice of Eamon to risk something to achieve a larger company paralleled anywhere else? Should we take that gamble to be a sin? Or it's just a children's... Yeah, see, you could tell that it's not something that literally happened because they talk about dawn and dusk. They talk about the sun rising. We know the elves awoke in darkness and that there was no sun at this point. Now, Tolkien did have the later idea that the Silmarillion itself is just a fairy tale and that the actual truth of it is just so much stranger, yeah. I have to reset my password because I've tried too many times. Use the PayPal app, yes. Give me a moment, guys. I just need to get into this. Okay, so I got to go to the app because I accidentally put in my password wrong, and I did it a few times. Yeah, we want to change the password. Let's do that. All right. Now I want to go over some of the. I'm trying to reset the password. Here we go. Some of the questions that have been sitting that are not really something that would be in a normal video, and we could maybe do that. How am I having them text me? Do that live here for as long as we're able to. Okay, got the code in there. Create a new password. Here we go. All right. That's a strong password. Okay. Just have to make sure I don't make any mistakes. My hands were shaking earlier, and I make sure the passwords match. Oh, I see what I did wrong. We have an Easterling in the chat. And he's a moderator. So I think, yes, it's definitely a parable of sorts, KH, that the elves made. But also the Vanyar, you know, they turned out to be the greatest of the elves and the most important ones, even though the story of the Silmarillion is largely that of the Noldor. They might be the least numerous. But, confirm current password, but give me a moment here. Why is this so difficult? I go into PayPal all the time. They don't match. All right, hold on. Oh dear. I'll get it eventually. Alright. This isn't working here. This isn't working. Alright. I'm having a hard time getting into my PayPal account right now. I will eventually figure this out, but... Well, you know, it's also the number of people that Bilbo had at his 111th birthday party, adding the ages of himself and Frodo, who was 33 at the time, together. So we could say that... Tolkien himself has... oh, I got in. We're good. Okay. I got in. We're good. Tolkien himself must have had a fascination with the number 144. As a matter of fact, let me grab the Fellowship of the Ring. We'll bring up where he used 144 there. That's in the very first chapter, A Long Expected Party, when he's making his speech. Let's see... Here we are. My dear people, my dear Bagginses and Boffins, and my dear Tooks and Brandybucks and Grubbs and Chubbs and Burrowses and Hornblowers and Bolgers, Brace Girdles, Good Bodies, Blockhouses and Proudfoots. Proud feet! Proud foots. Also, my good Sackville Bagginses that I welcome back at last to Bag End. Today is my 111th birthday. I'm 11 today. Hooray, hooray, many happy returns. I hope you're all enjoying yourselves as much as I am. Yes, no. You know, but let me skip ahead here. 144. Here it is. Secondly, to celebrate my birthday. I should say our birthday, for it is, of course, also the birthday of my heir and nephew Frodo. He comes of age and into his inheritance today. Together we score 144. Your numbers were chosen to fit this remarkable total. 1 gross, if I may use the expression. And, of course, they're offended by that because it's believed that you count items as 1 gross, a dozen, you know? But you don't count people as 1 gross. It would be considered a gross thing to do. A gross fascination. See, now Tolkien would do that for the pun. He would do that. Jane Goodall died. Oh, I hadn't heard that. That's sad. But yes, Tolkien enumerated a lot of things. The number that comes up the most is 7. 7 comes up a lot. 7 dwarf lords, 7 fathers of the dwarves, 7 stars, 7 swans. 7 just comes up a lot. It just broke? What just... Oh, the news just broke. I thought you meant the stream for a second. I was like, wait a minute, I'm still hearing music. The news just broke. I got you. But yeah, he also... Obviously, 9 was a really important number as well with the Fellowship of the Ring and with... you know, the Nazgul, you know, and all that. 3 comes up a lot in relation to the original 3 elves, the 3 rings, the 3 types of elves, you know. So that comes up, hey, Medio, that comes up quite a lot as well, you know. Yeah, and it was Elrond's idea to have 9 walkers to match 9 riders as well. But the number that is the most important is 7, the 7 stars in the constellation that we call the Big Dipper, and that there were a lot of different names for it in Tolkien's world. But the most important name of it was the Valakirka, or Sickle of the Valar. And it also may have been the 7 stars of Durin's crown. 7 stars signifies the flag of Numenor as well. So 7 is like the big number that he keeps coming back to over and over again. But obviously he also had some fascination with some of the larger numbers. 144 elves, 144 people in the specially cordoned off pavilion of Bilbo's birthday party. A lot of people mistakenly say, oh, there were 144 people at his birthday party. No, there were 144 people in what would essentially be the VIP section. The whole Shire was there. You know, I mean, there was basically no one who lived in the Shire was not invited. And if anybody wasn't invited, they showed up anyway. It was just that was basically people who he was related to or people that he was very fond of. And some, you know, some people from outside the Shire, like Gandalf, were included in that. And it was to be 144 because he was turning 111, and his nephew, who's really his cousin, was turning 33. So he's like, oh, hey, gross, you know? That's pretty gross. And I think Bilbo knew that he was going to offend people by saying that, and I don't think he cared all that much. I think that he did it on purpose. Anyway, let me drink some water here. So, I wanted to clear some of the things out of the community tab. I want to go over the community tab. I didn't get to... The reason I couldn't do a video is not only because I couldn't record last night, but basically because of the computer issues that I've been having, I haven't been able to sit and write and answer questions. So a lot of the questions that are sitting there in my Quora queue or sitting there in my YouTube community tab will get answered when I can. However, there are a few things that are in there that I just wanted to sort of clear out that are too quick of an answer. Sorry, last thing, you do struggle with the reconciliation of the Fellowship, who we take as real, being able to enter the West and then potentially speak with Ingwe, who himself was at Crivienen. Well, not all of the... Would Ingwe be able to relate the distant past of Middle-earth accurately? Or is that time truly lost, hidden, or faded? Well, if anything, what they could do is they could go to Lorien, and they can go to the halls of Vaira, where Vaira, who is Namomandos's wife, has laid out the true history of Middle-earth in her tapestries. So if anybody was to doubt the Elvish writing, they could go straight to the Valar. The Fellowship, not all of them wound up in the West. You have to keep that in mind. Gandalf, of course, belonged there. Legolas, as an elf, is fully welcome to be there. And by special invitation, Frodo and Sam. Bilbo as well. He wasn't in the Fellowship. Aragorn did not go. Boromir, he died. He did not go. Gimli wound up sort of gate crashing. He wound up there anyway. He was very close to dying at that point. But, yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to clear out some of these messages. You wonder if Farmer Maggot attended Bilbo's party and if Frodo was hiding under a table. Oh, that's interesting. I think that there's no doubt that Farmer Maggot and his wife had to have been at the party. They probably weren't in the pavilion, where there was 144 of them. But keep in mind that Frodo's fear was not specifically of Maggot himself, but specifically of his dogs. So with such a large crowd and with Frodo being in the pavilion, I think he would have been able to avoid Maggot and his wife anyway, and I don't think they would have run into each other. And like I said, it's not like he would have brought his dogs. Realistically, what can a mortal sorcerer of Middle-earth achieve? Radagast was respected by Gandalf, but he seems low-key compared to the other wizards. Radagast is interesting. I mean, he's not a sorcerer, obviously. He is a wizard. It's just that he's sort of a mysterious figure that we don't know much about. Radagast was not mortal. He was an angel, just as Saruman was, just as Gandalf was. The only person who really regarded him as being lower was Saruman. And the reason that Saruman did not like Radagast was not because he was less majestic or less powerful, but because essentially he was foisted upon him as a companion that he did not wish. Because Yavanna thought that this Saruman guy, who was at that time would have been called Tarandor, or Kuramo, but Tarandor was the name that Tolkien eventually settled on. He was very arrogant, and he had not learned humility, and it was Yavanna's idea that Radagast, who was a very humble sort, would teach the virtue of patience and the virtue of humility to Saruman. Of course, that didn't work. You wonder what the Blue Boys thought of our favorite nature-loving wizard. It's interesting because, Alatar, he was one of the first guys to go, yeah. What you meant is that Radagast was more powerful than mortal sorcerers. Oh, okay. So you don't know what a mortal could do with magic? I mean, well, the Witch King is an example. So a lot, the Witch King was a mortal sorcerer, and he caused a lot of trouble. And it took an alliance of elves and men and a few hobbits as well to take him out. Treebeard says Gandalf is the only wizard who cares for the trees. That's because he just never met Radagast. It has to be. It has to be. If Treebeard had read The Hobbit, he might not have been so kind about saying that about Gandalf, because he would have been like, well, he did what? Because he burned a bunch of trees in The Hobbit, Obviously, he kind of had to in the situation. But there is no way... See, Treebeard doesn't really know what Gandalf really is. Otherwise, he never would have referred to him as being young. He referred to Saruman as being young, because as far as he knows, these guys came a few thousand years ago, and Treebeard's been there since the First Age. He may have been one of the very first Ents to awaken in a land called... I can't think of the name of it. I'm going to grab the Return of the King. Radagast the Fool. Radagast the Bird Tamer. What was that land called? I have to find it now. Oh, it's okay. So it would be when Galadriel and Celeborn were talking to... I think this chapter has many partings. I want to say it was Nath something. Nath something or other. Here it is. Then Treebeard said farewell to each of them in turn, and he bowed 3 times slowly and with great reverence to Celeborn and Galadriel. It is long, long since we met by Stark o' Stone. Avanamar Vanamalia Nostari, he said. It is sad that we should meet only thus at the ending, for the world is changing. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth, and I smell it in the air. I do not think we shall meet again. And Celeborn said, I do not know, eldest. But Galadriel said, not in Middle-earth. nor until the lands that lie under the wave are lifted up again. Then in the willow meads of Tassarinan we may meet in the spring. Tath is what I was saying. It's Tassarinan. I was doing the Feanor thing. The fact that she talks about that they won't meet again in Middle-earth until the world is reborn, and that she specifically mentions Beleriand as the lands that lie under the wave. And Tassarinan is an interesting, sort of almost like a footnote in the Silmarillion, that it was the land where they first mentioned that there were Ents around that area, and it may be sort of like their Crevian and where they came from. And so it's very possible that what Galadriel is saying to Treebeard in this instance is, I will see you in the next iteration of the world when everything is restarted, and I will come to you in your place of your birth. Saruman is like land down under you. Saruman's like the Uber CEO. Oh dear, you're correct. We could see the devilry of Isengard all around us, really. You know, and you also have to remember there's a few different versions of the Hobbit out there. And in one of the versions, he says, "Do you know my cousin Radagast?" And in another one, he says, "Do you know Radagast? He's of my order." But either way, you know, Gandalf was spinning quite a lot of nonsense with Bjorn, telling him a story of, you know, me and Bilbo, you know, and with one other guy, you know, and then so me and Bilbo and our couple of companions. He kept like, you know, raising it, just sort of like doing the same thing he did to Bilbo. Gandalf is quite deceptive when he needs to be, especially in The Hobbit. He doesn't outright lie, but he stretches the truth like Laffy Taffy, you know. Saruman looked down on everybody except Sauron. I would make the argument that he looked down upon Sauron as well, because he really thought that he could fool Sauron. He thought he could deceive the master of deception. He thought that he could get one over on him. He didn't give Sauron enough respect to realize that such a thing was not going to work out. So I would say that he looked down on everybody. He might have even looked down on the Valar, for all we know. All right, let's go to the community tab. I wanted to do this and sort of maybe get into a few things there. Why am I on this account? I need to switch accounts. Yeah, he was incredibly arrogant, which is why Radagast was there. You know, that's why he was sent. As a matter of fact, here, let me grab that part. Let's grab this book. We're getting a lot of different books today. We had Morgoth's Ring. We had Fellowship of the Ring. We had the Silmarillion. We had Return of the King. We had War of the Jewels. And now I'm going to read Beren and Luthien as well. And now I'm going to read a little bit from Unfinished Tales. Let's see. Here it is. Go back a bit here. Curanir was the eldest and came first, and after him came Mithrandir and Radagast, and others of the Astari who went into the east of Middle-earth, and do not come into these tales. Most of the remaining writings about the Astari as a group are unhappily no more than very rapid jottings, often illegible. Illegible. That's a word that I always find difficult to say. Illegible. Of major interest, however, is a brief and very hasty sketch of a narrative, telling of a council of the Valar, summoned, it seems, by Manwë, and maybe he called upon Eru for counsel, at which it was resolved to send out 3 emissaries of Middle-earth. Who would go, for they must be mighty, peers of Sauron, but must forego might, and clothe themselves in flesh so as to treat on equality, and win the trust of elves and men. But this would imperil them, dimming their wisdom and knowledge, and confusing them with fears, cares, and weariness coming from the flesh. But 2 only came forward, Curamo, who was chosen by Aula, and Alatar, who was sent by Oroma. Then Manwë asked where was Aloran. And Aloran, who was clad in grey, and having just entered from a journey, had seated himself at the edge of the council, asked what Manwë would have of him. Manwë replied that he wished Aloran to go as the 3rd messenger to Middle-earth. It was remarked in parentheses that Olorin was a lover of the Eldar that remained, apparently to explain Manwë's choice. But Olorin declared that he was too weak for such a task and that he feared Sauron. Then Manwë said that he was all the more reason why he should go, and that he commanded Olorin. Illegible words follow that seemed to contain the word third. But at that Varda looked up and said, "Not as the third," and Curumo remembered it. The note ends with the statement that Curumo, Saruman, took Iwendel, Radagast, because Yavanna begged him, and that Alatar took Pallando as a friend. On another page of jottings clearly belonged to the same period, it was said that Curumo was obliged to take Iwendel to please Yavanna's wife of Aula. There are here also some rough tables relating to the names of the Istari, to the names of the Valar, Olorin to Manwë and Varda, Curumo to Aule, Iwendel to Yavanna, Alatar to Orima, and Pallando also to Orima, but this replaces Pallando to Mandos and Nienna. The meanings of these relations between Istari and Valar is clearly, in the light of the brief narrative just cited, that each Istar was chosen by each Vala for his innate characteristics, perhaps even that they were members of the people of that Vala, in the same sense that it is said that Sauron is of the Vala Quenta, that in his beginning he was of the Maiar of Aula, and he remained mighty in the lore of the people. It is thus very notable that Curumo, Saruman, was chosen by Aula. There is no hint of an explanation of why Yavanna's evident desire that the Istari should include in their number one with a particular love of the things of her making could only be achieved by imposing Radagast's company on Saruman, while the suggestion in that essay on the Istari, and that in becoming enamored of the wild creatures of Middle-earth, Radagast neglected the purpose for which he was sent, is perhaps not perfectly in accord with the idea of his being specifically chosen by Yavanna. Moreover, both in the essay of the Istari and in Of the Rings of Power, Saruman came first and he came alone. On the other hand, it is possible to see a hint of the story of Radagast's unwelcome company and Saruman's extreme scorn for him, as related by Gandalf to the Council of Elrond. Jawa Josh, thank you so much. That will absolutely go towards the computer. Thank you very much for the $20 donation. Do you have a particular reading you'd like me to do? So you could see that Curumo, as he was called then, he eventually settled on the name Tarundor, but it's Saruman. He was very like, oh man, this Radagast guy, I just hate him. Why is he with me? I didn't want a companion. I wanted to do this all on my own. He really thought that he was going to go over to Middle-earth and just beat the snot out of Sauron. He missed the point of it, that they had to be mighty and that they had to be wise, but that they had to diminish themselves and clothe themselves in flesh and deal with all the hurts and the worry and the frustrations and the tiredness and the hunger and the thirst, you know, and to become equals with the elves and the men. And he never saw it that way. He was jealous of Gandalf because the elves loved this guy, and they didn't love him so much, and he didn't have any use for mortals. He thought, these people are only here for a little while, what do they matter? Jawa Josh, if you'd like me to do a specific reading for you, just speak up at any point, and I will do that for you. Let's see. Keep in mind, guys, we everything has gone well so far. But if it suddenly stops, you'll know why. That's the computer. Hey, Sarah, how's it going? That's why you called it tricky. You take the position that we should take their age from the time of their incarnation. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I said, he just Treebeard doesn't know what they are. The same that he didn't know what a hobbit was. You know what I mean? He used to go all over the place, but for the past few thousand years, he's pretty much just stuck to just the forest that bears his name, and that's been it, you know. So he doesn't know about Radagast. He doesn't know about hobbits. He has no idea where the Entwives got off to. He has no idea what's going on. All right. I keep saying this. Let's actually go in here to the... All right, so I wanted to go to the community tab and maybe clear a few of these out by addressing them. So let's see. Jesse DeBoat wrote this yesterday. In the Silmarillion, it states that after the exile of Isildur, Finarfin became king of those that remained in Valinor. How likely it is do you think that he's still the king there at the end of the Third Age? I think we'll do that in a video, right? We'll do that in a video. Restoring the realm of ruin. This is you, Walter. Could there be any other immensely dark creatures different from Ungoliant in the southern stretches of Valinor, like the Valley of Avathar, where Ungoliant herself was found? Okay, this I'd like to address in a video, but I will give you a quick answer since I know you're in the chat. Yes, absolutely. But I think the thing is that Aemon is interesting. If you've ever seen Tolkien's very earliest maps of what Middle-earth and Aemon look like in relation to each other, the shape of Aemon is sort of like a banana, or perhaps a boomerang. But I think a banana is very apt sort of comparison. Let me see if I can find one of those maps here in the. Oh, that's a bit older. Yeah, I have a lot of great, fantastic maps in this atlas here. But let's see if I can find one that includes... Oh! Well, you could sort of see it here. Where it's... Here, it's sort of like a crescent at the edge of the world. It's like a crescent. And after the world was broken and it was no longer a disc and it became round, I think that's when the Undying Lands took on this sort of banana shape. And you can see here, this is listed as the wastes of Anaman, and here the plain of Valinor. And there's more to the south, and Ungoliant was in the south, and it's absolutely possible that there could have been something else down there, maybe not at the sort of majesty and terror that you would get with something like Ungoliant. It's also possible that at some point Orima would have gone down there and hunted a lot of these sort of creatures and gotten rid of them. And that Ungoliant may have been sort of the last survivor. Okay, Sidens for Sithis, thank you for coming by. And the reason that I say that is because Ungoliant was specifically hiding, not just from Melkor, but from Manwë as well, that she was able to take in light into herself, and then to vomit up darkness, and Tolkien called it unlight, that could not be pierced by light, and that Manwë couldn't see through. Now that doesn't mean that he didn't know there was something there, because if he's looking off to the south and he says, well, there's this dark spot where I can't see, but I'm not going to worry about that, that's probably nothing. No, he's going to think, well, there's something going on there, you know? And one of the biggest questions that people will come to when we start to realize that what the Silmarillion really is a story that the elves are telling of their past, and that it is written by the elves, translated later on by Bilbo, but you get to certain scenes and you're like, well, who wrote that? Who chronicled that? And there are some scenes that you can sort of make an inference, like Fingolfin's battle against Morgoth. There were no elves there other than Fingolfin, and he died. Now, of course, he dies. He goes to Mandos, and he could have told, anybody over there. But eventually, somebody, and maybe somebody came over, during the War of Wrath and told these stories. But a lot of it, comes from Ulmo. When Hurin came to the sea and he met with Ulmo, the first man to meet a Valar that wasn't, Melkor, he got told a lot of different things, and then he went straight to Gondolin. So a lot of the histories of the early years, and a lot of the stuff like the Balrogs fighting Ungoliant, or Melkor speaking to Ungoliant in the Undying Lands before they came to the Two Trees, that may have been relayed to the elves by Hurin, and it may have been relayed to Hurin by Ulmo, and it may have been relayed to Ulmo just by the fact that he's wherever water is. I wrote a thing recently about, and it's in the most recent episode, I think, how do the wise like Elrond and Gandalf know that the One Ring was forged in Mount Doom? I said, well, you can't have forging without water, right? It's just impossible to forge anything without having water. So Ulmo was there. Ulmo knew. Therefore, Manwë knows. Therefore, Gandalf knows. And it's just sort of this chain of wisdom. I will write that down, and I will give you a real answer in a video and on Quora. But I wanted it, since you're here, I figured I'm not going to delete that. I'm going to leave that there. Time Lord Guy says, is it possibly the song Frodo sings, The Man in the Moon, is about Tilion visiting Middle-earth or the land of Bree a long time ago? This deserves a lot more attention. The quick answer is sort of yes. It's an allusion to it. If anybody was here for when I was reading book 1, when I was reading The Fellowship of the Rings, we talked about that and about how in this poem about the man and the moon is always referred to with male and masculine pronouns, while the sun is a she, and it goes into the elven myth of Tilion and Arien. So absolutely, this is sort of the Hobbitish version. Was Curufin too cowardly to hunt, although he had Huan? I don't know. I don't think so. I think, unless you mean in the Undying Lands, he didn't have Huan in the Undying Lands. But Curufin was not cowardly. I wouldn't say that, no. You wonder how Ungoliant could talk, given that she's more of a monster. I wonder how she would have learned how to speak. You know, I mean, it's sort of like that, like the elves, just like, hey, you know, I got to figure out something to say. I do think it was probably Morgoth that taught her to speak. So I'm not gonna. There's a few that I want to delete and just address them now, but so far these are all I want to address in an actual video. Here's another one from Time Lord Guy. Could the Astari do magic without their staffs? Actually, the plural of staff is actually staves, by the way. I did wonder, because it does seem that Saruman is almost powerless when his staff shatters and is able to do anything. I have to address this in an actual article in a video. But the question is that it's not that they can't do magic without the staff. It's that the staff also represents what they are in terms of authority. Because all of their magic, they're not performing magic like a man performs magic, or like an elf performs magic, or an orc performs magic. They are shaping reality because they are angels, right? They are saying things and making it so. They are issuing words of command. They are commanding reality to adhere to their words and their gestures and their thoughts. They don't need a staff to do that. However, when Gandalf says to Saruman, your staff is broken, and it breaks, he's essentially firing him. He has been given authority greater than that of Saruman, greater than that of Manwë. He has been given the authority by God himself, Eru Ilúvatar, to fire Saruman and to take away his power. And the staff is a symbol of his power. Keep in mind that Gandalf also broke his own staff at one point, and then he spent the next 10 days fighting a Balrog, and then dying on the 11th day. So, and then he was given a new staff and white robes by Galadriel, who knew that he would return because of her foresight, possibly from the mirror of Galadriel, knew that he would need a new staff, and knew that he would need white robes. So she kind of knew what was going on. No, you don't need a staff to do magic. There's a lot of instances where Gandalf does magic without his staff. He does it with just words or gestures or pipe smoke. But the staff represents their badge of office, we'll say. Okay. Aquaventus 11. This was 6 days ago. Your latest reading made me wonder, what do you think Faramir was insinuating when he spoke of the pinch if Boromir and Aragorn had both made it to Gondor? I always believed that Boromir would have recognized Aragorn as king and followed him, but Faramir knew him best and seems to think otherwise. Do you think Boromir would have come to resent or even undermine Aragorn? Yeah, I think this will get addressed in a video as well. To give a quick answer, I don't think Boromir would have come to resent and undermine Aragorn. I think he was already doing that. He he did not recognize Aragorn as being his future king. He wanted his father to be the king. Faramir speaks of this, where he says that Boromir never really understood why the stewards couldn't just proclaim themselves to be king. And he says, how long does it have to be before we can just say the king's not coming, let's just be kings ourselves? And that Denethor, who's a lot smarter than Boromir, answered him saying, for the people of Gondor, it would never be too long. Denethor was ready to tell Aragorn to take a hike, which is exactly what he said to Gandalf, that he said, I know who this guy is. He doesn't have a legitimate claim to the throne of Gondor. He might have a legitimate claim to the throne of Arnor, but that's their business. So, yeah, we'll talk about that more at some point in the future. Okay, so here's one from Aquamentus as well. This one I'm going to address right now. You talked a bit about Anglachel a few videos ago, and your pronunciation surprised me. I had always thought the CH the way it is used in Bach. I've learned how by now to question myself before questioning you in the realm of Tolkien, but every other source uses the hard sound. Well, see, here's the thing. You're not saying Bach correctly. It's not Bach, it's Bach. So it's really, really difficult to say Anglachel. And to talk about it in any meaningful way. Now, if I go into... I guess the Silmarillion would be a good way to do this. Alright, Coyote. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. Because there should be an excellent guide to these sort of things in here. It might be easier to find in the Lord of the Rings, actually. But I know there's one in here. That's the index. Let's see. That's the appendix. Well, that's more of a glossary than anything. Let me grab the Return of the King, because I know I can find it there. I love this bookshelf. Alright, let's see. Languages of the people of Third Age. Wow, look at that. Of men, of hobbits, on dwarves, trolls, translations. Oh, that's not quite it, actually. There's the index. I need to find there is sort of a translation guide here. The Kirth. Tengwar, Feanorian letters, writing. Stress. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. Here we are. Okay. Alright. So, CH is only used to represent the sound here in Bach, in German or Welsh, not that in English church, except at the end of words and there before T. This sound was weakened to H in the speech of Gondor, and that change has been recognized in a few names such as Rohan, Rohirrim, Imrahil is a Númenorian name. So basically, but you got to remember, he's saying German and Welsh, so it's not Bach, it's Bach. It's guttural. So Anglachel, which is the way I normally say it, is not really correct, but it's extremely hard for me to consistently say Anglachel. And it doesn't sound very Elvish, so I tend to sort of just not say it the correct way. Also, a lot is made of Feanor and the Noldor as smiths, but I'd say they were the greatest jewel smiths, while Eöl, with his creation of Galvorn, was the greatest weapon and armor smith of the elves. Why doesn't he get more credit? Probably because he never was in the Undying Lands, and he wasn't creating things there, and he was a jerk. Now, Feanor was a jerk, too. But everybody was sort of like, wow, that Feanor guy was once so great, and then he became a huge jerk. Whereas Eöl was just sort of always a jerk. So people didn't like Eöl, even in the primitive fall of Gondolin, which you could read in the Book of Lost Tales Part 2, where he actually was somebody that lived in Gondolin. He was sort of seen... Oh, no, I'm thinking of Maeglin, never mind. But he was always seen as this sort of like dark and annoying sort of weirdo that nobody liked. Okay, let's see. Time Lord guy. Let's see. In the tragedy of Turin, he is at one point called a woodwose, as I believe they're naked wild men of the wood. We've seen such creatures in Middle-earth. Were such creatures... Okay, so Time Lord guy has to stop using... Okay, I know that for whatever reason, this is not my fault, this is not his fault. For whatever reason, submitting questions in this fashion only works on a phone. And I'm going to ask, if you want to submit questions on YouTube, don't use speech to text. Because I can tell that this is speech to text and it's very hard to parse. So what is he asking exactly? Are the Woses real? Were people like Radagast and perhaps Bjorn what that myth was based on? No, the Woses, which are really just the sort of Pukul men of the Second Age and what became the Druidan of the Third Age, like Gan. They are in, the Return of the King. They're not myths. It's not based on like Bjorn or Radagast. If anything, maybe the Blue Wizards had started sort of the later European myths of what wizards are. I'm going to take that one off of here because I think that's as much as I can address that. But I'm just going to ask that if you want to submit a question via YouTube's community tab, and I fully welcome that you do that. Just don't use speech to text. I know you can only do it on a phone. I don't know why you can't do it on a desktop PC, but there you have it. Let's see. Are there any other ones that I want to... Can I elaborate? This is from Rash Terry. Can I elaborate on the second music of the Ainur? It's probably the element of the legendarium that confuses me most. What exactly is it? The end of the world, the remaking it into something new, the transition of Arden to our world, or something else entirely? Thank you. That I'm going to have to address. The only thing that you mentioned that it's not is it's not the transition of Arda into our world. Tolkien recognized that we're still in like the 6th or 7th age. We're still in what he referred to as Arda Mard. And you can tell that we're still in this flawed version of the world because they're still evil. The world would be... This is sort of a post-Revelation or post-Ragnarok sort of idea that Tolkien may have abandoned later on and just decided that it wasn't something that was going to literally happen, but was something that the elves certainly believed may happen. We see that with Galadriel. I just read that part a little while ago. She believed that it would happen. Time Lord guy. Why are the dwarves so secrets about their language? Do they have a hidden power in the runes? No, you know what? I just read a part about this just a little while ago. It's really that they don't... The hell was that? It's like a... It just got very bright in here for like a second. I think the sun was just really bright for a moment. The dwarves are just secretive about their languages because they just don't trust anybody. And their language is interesting because they did not create it themselves. The elves created their own language. And then some of the elves, the ones that were known as the Avari, were the ones that taught men how to speak and taught them language and culture. But then the men would come up with their own languages that derived from those, primitive elvish tongues, like Avaran. So most of the races that speak created their own language. However, in the case of the dwarves, that is not so. I'm going to bring this down here. This is something that I think I will address in a video, but I'll just give you a very quick sort of... when I can make videos again, hopefully soon. The more donations we get, the quicker that happens, No, it's past the Valaquenta. I was just in here in Ali and Yavanna, and it was right before Iluvatar enters the picture. Here it is. Is this it? I think I went too far. It's a very, very small chapter, so it's right here at the very beginning. It is told that in the beginning the dwarves were made by Aule in the darkness of Middle-earth, for so greatly did Aule desire the coming of the children, to have learners to whom he could teach his lore and his crafts, that he was unwilling to await the fulfillment of the designs of Iluvatar. And Aule made the dwarves even as they still are, because the forms of the children who were to come were unclear to his mind, and because the power of Melkor was yet over the earth, and he wished therefore that they should be strong and unyielding. But fearing that the other Valar might blame his work, he wrought in secret, and he made first the 7 fathers of the dwarves in a hall under the mountains in Middle-earth. Now Ilúvatar knew what was done, and in the very hour that Aule's work was complete, and he was pleased, and began to instruct the dwarves in the speech that he had devised for them, Ilúvatar spoke to him. So right there, so it's actually a language that one of the Valar came up with. It's something that Aule came up with and taught to the dwarves. They didn't invent it themselves. So my guess there, and I'll elaborate more when I get to actually write, is that Aule probably told them to keep it pretty close to the chest and that it was just for them. It wasn't for everybody. This is from you, Walter. Would Grond, the first one, and the spear Morgoth used to pierce the 2 trees have been fashioned by himself, or Sauron, being originally a Mai of Aule, have forged them for his master? The answer here for Grond is that it could go either way. I will address this in a video, I think. The answer for the spear was that was something that Morgoth probably made himself. Because Sauron did not come to the Undying Lands for very long. He very quickly skipped town and went back to Middle-earth. So I think that would have been something Morgoth made himself. Mr. Rippus asked me, did Tolkien popularize dragons? No, absolutely not. Dragons have always been incredibly popular creatures in mythology, in religion, in fairy stories. If anything, if there's a single story that popularized dragons, it would be Beowulf, not anything that Tolkien wrote. Smaug was, of course, a very popular dragon. But also note that dragons aren't like big things. There's Smaug and Calagon, who is only in like a single page, even as powerful and crazy as was. Glaurung was probably the most important dragon, being such a huge part of the Children of Húrin. But keep in mind that the Children of Húrin was based off of Beowulf in its structure, at least. But dragons appear in just about every culture that you can think of. So I would say not. No, Tolkien did not popularize dragons. I think I've addressed that as much as I can, really. I don't think I could really make that into a whole segment. Anon047, let's see. When Gandalf said that Sauron was summoning all evil things to his service had made Gollum go to Mordor, do you think Bilbo must have felt the urge to travel too? After all, Gandalf and Sauron's ring leaves a mark on its bearers, and Bilbo possessed it for 60 years. I think I'll need to address this deeply. The answer's no, but I need to address deeply why it's no. But it basically comes down to the fact that as corrupted as Bilbo became, the worst thing that he ever did was tell some harmless lies. He never quite qualified for evil, and that if we go into Tolkien's letters and we know a little bit more about the personality of Sméagol and the personality of Déagol before they even found the ring, they were already sort of nasty people. The ring made them worse. They weren't evil at that point. They were troublemakers. They were ne'er-do-wells. But the ring made Gollum evil. But he had the capacity for it. Bilbo doesn't really have the capacity for evil. And we learn that right after he gets the ring. He has a sudden urge to kill Gollum. He's afraid of Gollum. And Frodo feels that he may have been very justified if he had killed Gollum in that instance. But Frodo's will was greater than that, what the ring was giving him. And he decided not to because he thought that just sort of executing him like that would be very, very bad. So he didn't do it. And that is all about the patience and pity and mercy, and why Gollum is the most important character. Now, one I'll have to address in a video, absolutely. What was Thrain doing in the halls of Sauron and Mirkwood? This is Time Lord guy. Did the ring he owned lure him there, or was it just bad luck? Well, Gandalf didn't even know the answer to this. We read this part just a little while ago when somebody asked me where the name Necro came from. Gandalf didn't even know why Thrain was there, so certainly I don't know. I don't think that he went to the halls of Sauron, the Dol Guldur, the necromancer's lair. I don't think he went there. I think at some point he was captured and he was brought there, and that he was probably on his way to the Lonely Mountain, is what Gandalf thought, at least. I think I could make an article out of that. I think we'll leave that one on there. Here's another one from Time Lord Guy. Who were the villains in the new Shadow that Tolkien was going to write? I've heard they might have been the Blue Wizards, but don't know if that's true. That's just fan conjecture. If you guys know the new Shadow, which you could read it in this book here, it's only about 13 pages. It's in the third part, The Peoples of Middle-earth. And there's a whole section called The New Shadow, which was essentially the sequel to The Lord of the Rings that Tolkien scrapped. He decided he didn't want to write it. And it started with a sort of a cult that was arising in Gondor in the Fourth Age of young men and boys sort of worshipping orcs and just sort of like growing this new shadow. I think there's no way that it would have been a character that we know. Like the Blue Wizards, definitely not. Some people thought the Mouth of Sauron or whatever, but just Tolkien's name for it was the New Shadow. It wasn't something old, it was something new. So I think it would have been a character that he would have created. Probably a mortal man, some sort of cult leader in Gondor at that time, causing all these problems. But since he abandoned the work so early, only really writing one chapter, a rather short 13 pages, we can't say for sure, but my belief has always been that based on just the chapter, I mean, with Sauron and the Lord of the Rings, it was Return of the Shadow. This is the New Shadow. So I think in this sense, it would have been something new. I think I do want to write an article about that, so we'll leave that one there. John Scheidner asks, if Celebrimbor had not forged the three, would he or the other elves still have perceived Sauron's deception with just the original 16? Yes, and the reason is because it didn't say that Celebrimbor sensed Sauron. It said the elves sensed Sauron. And it says that they took off their rings. So it actually means that Celebrimbor, he wasn't wearing these three rings. He had all three with him. He wasn't wearing any one of them, though. So it was actually the other 16 that sensed him. I think we could definitely write an article about that. Here's one from you, Walter. Why was Fingolfin's sword named Ringle, a lord with the sea, known as Ringle? Why do they have the same name? Walter, I think we're going to address this in an article, but basically it's sort of like how Amroth was a king of Lorien, and Amroth is a hill in Lorien, and Amroth is a region of Gondor. And thank you for the subscription there, Sven. And also, Luthien had so many different meanings. We talked about this on the Council of Tolkien the last time we got to do it, about Luthien meaning many different things, and at one point it was even a masculine name, and it was, there was one of the Valar was Luthien, and there was all these other Luthiens out there, one of them even being a name for England. So, we'll talk about Ringo later on. John Doe asked me, where did the gift of foresight or prophecy come from in the series? With Gandalf, it makes sense, as he's a divine being, and to a lesser extent with elves like Glorfindel, but there are other occasions where human characters prophesy events that are yet to come, the most notable being the seer who foretells Aragorn's calling upon the Oathbreakers, and the prophetic dreams that Boromir and Faramir receive. The dreams that Boromir and Faramir received came straight from the Valar, and you know this because it was a voice out of the west that spoke to them in their dream. And it's something called, not the Asanwe Kanwa, because that's words coming into your mind. I forget the actual Elvish name for it, but it has to do with images coming. And they don't like to give these images to men who are awake. And the reason they do that is because they basically are giving you what is called a hallucination, and that men who see these visions tend to think that they are real and not some sort of message being sent. That's just why they are often received in dreams. Actually, one of the greatest seers is Aragorn himself, and if you look at his ancestry, there's elves in there, and there's even one of the Ainur, a Maya named Melian, in there. But basically, all the foresight and prophecy generally comes from the Valar. We'll definitely go into some detail on that in a future segment. Walter, you sent me a lot here. Do we know if Gimli ever took a wife, or did his love stay true to Galadriel through his whole life, even as he sailed to the Undying Lands with Legolas? And if so, he did this, could you speak on the nature of this love Gimli held for Galadriel and help explain it and how it correlates to what Tolkien was trying to get across by his writing that Galadriel gave Gimli? 3 of her hairs. I'm sorry, it's a rather long-winded question. I'm really curious on the subject. So, what we see here is an example of what we refer to in classic romantic literature as courtly love, where there is a woman, almost always a woman, who is beyond you, either because she's too important, like a queen or something like that, and you're not somebody who's going to get to marry a queen, or sometimes it's just that she's already married, she's taken, and you love her, and you practice what is known as courtly love, which is where you love her from a respectful distance, and you express your love in ways that is respectful to her marriage and her person. You're not being creepy about it. You're not trying to take her away from her husband. And we see this a lot in the Matter of Britain, specifically the Arthurian legends, where a lot of the knights would give courtly love to Guinevere. Lancelot took a little too far. He went a little too far. He crossed that boundary. Gimli would never do that. Gimli absolutely was completely loyal to his courtly love of Galadriel. He never had a wife. He never had any children. And the reason that we know this is just because what was his motivation to sail to the west? He wasn't invited like Frodo and Sam were, or like Bilbo was. No dwarf had ever come to the Undying Lands except through Aule gathering their spirits in death. So, what was his motivation for going? Is that one day, at the age of 262 years old, he looks over at his friend Legolas and says, I want to see Galadriel one last time before I die. And Legolas said, let's go. So Legolas basically took Gimli along as his +1, sort of, a gate crashing. So basically, yeah. Now, the 3 hairs, of course, we could talk about Feanor and the Silmarils and all that. Feanor had asked her many times for what is known as a tress, which is not 3 hair. It's like a lock of hair. It's like this. It's a lot of hair. That's a tress. And it was said that the way that the light of the 2 trees shone on her hair, and keep in mind this is his niece he's talking about, gave him the idea to make the Silmarils. And Gimli came to her saying, I'm not asking you for anything. And she says, well, if you were going to ask me for something, what would it be? And he says, well, if I was so bold, I would ask for a single strand of your hair. And she says to him, what are you going to do with it? And he says that he would capture it in a crystal, which is now reminding her of Feanor, not only because he's asking for hair, but that he wants to make her hair into crystals. But then he says something interesting, that he would have it as an heirloom of his house and put it in a place that everybody could appreciate it. And that makes him very much not like Feanor.